Chapter 685, Boiling Water. Chapter 685, Boiling Water. The two ancient frost crocodiles seemed to be able to sense the strength of Su Zimo the intruder, and they did not hold back, releasing their inner cores immediately. Instantly, the temperature of the lake dipped. The inner core was like an ice cube shrouded with thick demonic chi, emitting an endless frost. The chilling aura shot over and a layer of frost formed over Su Zimo's body. In the blink of an eye, ice crystals extended from his limbs to his entire body and finally his head. They covered everything and stacked layer over layer thickly. The chilling aura was so intense, ferocious and terrifying that it froze the demonic chi Su Zimo conjured around his surroundings. Everyone in the barrier of the anti-water bead became nervous. Although they were protected by the barrier, they could sense the chilling aura. Given the environment, any external living beings that arrived at this extremely cold place, no matter if they were cultivators, demon beasts of land or the deep oceans, their combat strength would be diminished. It would be considered good if they could even retain half of their original combat strength. As for ancient frost crocodiles, because they lived here, they could unleash their maximum potential. Given the severe disadvantages he faced, everyone was not confident whether Su Zimo could defend against the attacks of the two ancient frost crocodiles. One of the ancient frost crocodiles swiped its tail. Although it had a massive body, it was unusually agile in the lake with a shocking speed, and it arrived before Su Zimo instantly. Crack! 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 Suddenly, cracking sounds echoed from within Su Zimo's body. Cracks started appearing on that humanoid ice statue. Boom! Immediately after, there was an explosion. Right in front of Monkey and the others, a huge figure burst forth from the ice crystals and soared into the skies. His tendons and bones echoed at the same time and his blood chi soared. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo's body expanded to a height of 100 feet and his black hair danced. In the dirty lake waters, his eyes were frighteningly bright and he resembled a towering divine being. The two ancient frost crocodiles were much stronger than Su Zimo had imagined. When he circulated his inner core, his blood chi surged and his body was like a cauldron. Despite that, the two ancient frost crocodiles could freeze him. Right now, he was no longer holding back and the power of his blood chi and inner core was released entirely. Swash! Su Zimo gripped Blood Quencher tightly, glared at the ancient frost crocodile that was charging towards him before slashing forward. A series of ripples spread through the lake. Although they seemed gentle, they possessed a terrifying killing intent. The ancient frost crocodile was smart. When it saw that it was unable to dodge in time, it channeled the power of its inner core wildly and formed an invisible ice wall before itself. Crack! The ripple struck the ice wall. Immediately after, another ice wall rose. The ice wall thickened continuously. Continuing forward, the ripples shattered ice wall after ice wall. Finally, at the seventh ice wall, the power released by the slash was completely dissipated. Not bad. Su Zimo nodded with a flash of surprise in his eyes. The ripple stance was a saber stance created by the Saber Emperor. That slash possessed the power of force and was something that most demon beasts wouldn't be able to defend against. However, it was clear that the ancient frost crocodile was rather capable since it could go unscathed against the ripple stance. Another ancient frost crocodile seized the opportunity to rush forward murderously. Slash! Su Zimo stood where he was motionlessly and attacked once more. Swoosh! Countercurrent was released. In that lake, not only would there be no sluggishness in the saber stances of the Sea Calming Manual, they could even be released to their full potential. Countercurrent was the stance with the greatest power in the Sea Calming Manual. Against that slash, the ancient frost crocodile did not dodge or avoid at all. Instead, it lunged forward and spat out its chilling inner core in front of itself. Clang! The demonic chi released by the inner core formed a shield of ice. When Blood Quencher struck the shield exploded instantly. It could not defend against the sharpness of Blood Quencher and the power of Countercurrent. The inner core was repelled. It dimmed significantly as the ancient frost crocodile devoured it back into its stomach. Blood quencher descended. The eyes of the ancient frost crocodile were extremely calm without any trace of panic, as though it had already expected everything. It opened its mouth and bit Blood Quencher head on. This ancient frost crocodile chose to take on a Khanate spirit weapon head on. Su Zimo's gaze turned cold and the blood beam on his saber intensified. Crack. 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 That single slash severed close to 100 of the ancient frost crocodile's sharp teeth. The remaining few hundred teeth were loosened as well as blood seeped out from its mouth, dyeing the lake waters red. However, the ancient frost crocodile's mouth was lined with sharp fangs that crossed in a zigzag manner like a valley of swords. The depletion of the power of Su Zimo's slash caused Blood Quencher to be jammed in that mouth of sharp fangs. Watch out! Ching Ching and the others yelled nervously and pointed to Su Zimo's back from within the anti-water bead barrier. A dark shadow blanketed over Su Zimo's head. Behind him, another ancient frost crocodile surged over with a widened mouth, devouring Su Zimo, who was 100 feet tall, in a single mouthful. At that moment, Su Zimo finally understood why the ancient frost crocodile at the start wanted to take his attack head-on. Both ancient frost crocodiles sensed his strength and one of them wanted to open up an opportunity for its partner regardless of how severely it would get injured. Boss! Brother Su! Little Fatty and Shijian yelled and in a moment of impulse, wanted to charge out of the anti-water bead barrier. Don't go out first. A tall figure blocked the two of them. He glared at the ancient frost crocodile outside with a flickering scarlet glint and said in a deep, hoarse voice. Monkey said, let's wait first. Among the group, Monkey and the spirit tiger had been through many fights with Su Zimo in the ancient battlefield and understood his strength best. Although Little Fatty and Shijian had not seen Su Zimo for many years, their impression of him was the same as it was 20 years ago. In the lake. After devouring Su Zimo, the ancient frost crocodile floated in its original spot quietly and motionlessly, as though it was trying to feel something. A moment later, it suddenly opened its mouth and let out a tragic shriek. Its eyes were filled with endless pain. Right in front of everyone, the water current that flowed out of the ancient frost crocodile's mouth burned with a thin layer of flames. Swish! A blazing flame ignited from within the ancient frost crocodile's body and covered it instantly, turning that massive body transparent from the heat. Within the ancient frost crocodile's body, a faint figure of a dragon-like gigantic beast could be seen, spreading its wings and roaring into the skies with lava gushing out of its mouth. Ah! Little Fatty came to a realization and yelled, that's the legendary primordial soaring serpent. Not bad. Monkey and the others nodded. The ancient frost crocodile belonged to the extreme end of the cold spectrum while the soaring serpent was a divine being of the flames and belonged on the extreme end of the heat spectrum. The difference between cold and hot produced an intense reaction in the ancient frost crocodile's body that resulted in a destructive power. In less than a few breaths, the frost crocodile's life was wiped away entirely. Su Zimo broke out with a phantom of the primordial Su Zimo behind his back, standing among the blazing flames with a torrential aura. The lake water that was initially piercingly cold had already started to bubble with heat. The lake was now boiling. The Eternal Divine Emperor. Chapter 686, 9 Palace Diagram. Chapter 686, 9 Palace Diagram. Little Fatty and Shijian's eyes widened with disbelief. Those means were far from the legendary divine powers of being able to incinerate the heavens and boiling the oceans. At best, it could only be boiling a lake. However, the visual impact caused by the scene was way too shocking. Fear filled the eyes of the other ancient frost crocodile and it turned to flee. Go! Su Zimo raised his arm and pointed forward. The primordial soaring serpent behind him spread its wings and tore through the layers of waves, causing the lake to bubble and boil everywhere it passed. Almost instantly, the soaring serpent arrived above the ancient frost crocodile and devoured it in a single mouthful. Swoosh! The ancient frost crocodile struggled and howled miserably within the stomach of the soaring serpent, causing endless flames to surge inside and outside of the latter's body. Before long, it was burned into ashes that scattered across the lake. No matter how violent the ancient frost crocodile was or how strong of a bloodline it possessed, it could not do anything against the presence of a primordial soaring serpent. The soaring serpent was a divine being of the flames. Back in the primordial era, it would even dare to roam the deep oceans, let alone a puny lake as such. Everyone in the anti-water beads barrier heaved a sigh of relief. Without the threat of the ancient frost crocodile, the anti-water bead could still hold out for a period of time. Suddenly, something moved in water currents in the depths of the lake. Everyone in the anti-water bead was unnerved once again, gazing around with widened eyes. It was as though their dive into the lake had alerted a certain life form within it. The movement intensified and came from all directions. However, the strange thing was that no matter how they tried, they could not detect any signs of life. All they could see was the water currents surging towards the anti-water bead barrier. Su Zimo's spirit perception was strong and he had naturally noticed danger a long time ago. However, even with his powerful vision, he could not identify the origin of that danger. Pust! Pust! The primordial soaring serpent reared its head and hissed, surveying the surroundings with its cold eyes in a warning manner. Swoosh! Opening its mouth, the primordial soaring serpent spewed out scorching lava that surged into the waters. Squeak, squeak. Suddenly, a strange sound could be heard from the waters in front of them, as though some living being was screeching. Su Zimo focused his gaze. Within the lake, there were countless thick and thin arms that came from long fish demons who were howling and screaming. Their gaping mouths were lined with sharp teeth that shimmered with a cold glint. The bodies of those fish demons were almost transparent and it was difficult to identify them as they moved through the water. If not for the scarlet lava blazing on their bodies, even Su Zimo would have difficulties identifying their existences. Bloodthirsty silverfishes. Su Zimo was alarmed. Bloodthirsty silverfishes and the soaring serpent were both beings of the primordial era. The former was violent, bloodthirsty, and chewed through every single thing they came across. They were ferocious beasts that were irrational and showed no fear. The most frightening thing was that bloodthirsty silverfishes moved in schools. At any moment, hundreds or thousands of bloodthirsty silverfishes could appear. Life was devoid everywhere they passed, leaving nothing but corpses in their wake. Even a perfect spirit weapon would be shredded into shards by the bloodthirsty silverfishes, let alone bodies of flesh. In the deep oceans back in the primordial era, even the strongest demons within would stay away when they encountered bloodthirsty silverfishes. Su Zimo had not expected that he would lure out these bloodthirsty things after summoning the primordial soaring serpent. In the eyes of the bloodthirsty silverfishes, it did not matter if they were facing the soaring serpent or divine turtle, they lunged at everything that showed signs of life. Squeak, squeak. Many bloodthirsty silverfishes were burned to death by the lava the soaring serpent spewed. However, many more bloodthirsty silverfishes surged forward and gnawed at Su Zimo's golden core phenomenon relentlessly. A small portion of the bloodthirsty silverfishes swam to where Monkey and the others were and started attacking the barrier of the anti-water bead. The barrier showed signs of dissipation. Another crack appeared on the anti-water bead. Su Zimo channeled his spirit energy to control his golden core phenomenon, purging away the bloodthirsty silverfishes nearby the anti-water bead as he shouted, "Hurry and head down. The bottom of the lake is right below. See if you can locate the entrance of the tomb." During his fight with the ancient frost crocodile earlier on, Su Zimo's body expanded to a height of 100 feet and his feet touched the bottom of the lake. That was how he knew they were close. Everyone's eyes lit up and hope reignited in their hearts. Buzz! Buzz! More bloodthirsty silverfishes surged forward and chewed at Su Zimo's golden core phenomenon. The glow of the primordial soaring serpent had already started to diminish. The golden core phenomenon was on the verge of dissipating. After all, this was a phenomenon created by spirit energy and was not the true body of the soaring serpent, even the soaring serpent phenomenon was showing signs of defeat against the relentless bites of the bloodthirsty silverfishes. I see it. Right then, little Fatty's voice echoed excitedly from the bottom of the lake. On the west of the bottom of the lake, there was an obvious semicircular entrance to the tomb with a width 20 feet apart and height 50 feet tall. Although tens of thousands of years had passed, it still looked extremely majestic. Little Fatty maneuvered the anti-water bead and advanced towards the tomb. There was a gigantic stone door at the tomb's entrance with no handle on it. Let me try and lift this stone door up, the spirit tiger declared bravely. Ching Ching glared at the spirit tiger and scolded, stand at the side. Don't interfere blindly if you don't wish to die. With that, Ching Ching turned to look at little Fatty. The spirit tiger glanced over instinctively as well. Little Fatty was standing on the spot, glaring at the ground on the tomb's entrance motionlessly as though he was in a trance. He had a grim expression that did not look good. A lattice diagram was etched on the ground at the entrance of the tomb with 9 identical squares. It looked extremely mysterious. The spirit tiger felt a sense of trepidation. It was obviously a seal that was left behind by the owner of the tomb. If he had barged in forcefully earlier on, he might have already triggered the seal and died on the spot. Don't worry, I'll hold back these silverfishes. Hurry and try to dispel it as soon as possible. Su Zimo's back was facing the group as he fought against the bloodthirsty silverfishes before him, trying his best to fight for time for little Fatty. Little Fatty's gaze shimmered with a wise look in his eyes. His brains were churning furiously. Although the diagram before them seemed simple with only 9 squares, an immense amount of calculation was required if they wanted to dispel the seal of the tomb master. This 9-palace diagram originated from the legendary river diagram. The river diagram was one of the most mysterious treasures of the primordial era. Some people managed to comprehend cultivation techniques from the river diagram, some managed to comprehend secret skills while others managed to comprehend formation techniques. Rumor has it that the river diagram contained the mysteries of the universe and the absolute truth of heaven and earth. No matter what, anyone could comprehend something just by taking a look at the river diagram. Time slowly passed. Su Zimo fought against the bloodthirsty silverfishes single-handedly. The primordial soaring serpent phenomenon had already cracked against the fanatic attacks of the bloodthirsty silverfishes and could disperse at any moment. At the back, little Fatty was frowning in deep thought, squeezing his brain juices at every single second. Nobody could help them. Finally. It worked. Little Fatty's eyes lit up. He lifted his foot and stepped on the 9-palace diagram, confident in every step he took. That seemingly clumsy and fat body of his was extremely light-footed on the 9-palace diagram. He tapped left and right, front and back swiftly in a dizzying manner, looking messy and unorganized. Open. Little Fatty shouted with his final step. Bang. Boom. Boom. The stone door rose accompanied by a massive explosion. Chapter 687, First to Arrive. Chapter 687, First to Arrive. There seemed to be a mysterious energy within the tomb. Although the entrance was open, the waters of the lake were unable to seep in. Hurry, let's enter. Little Fatty beckoned and brought everyone in. When he saw that, Su Zimo did not continue fighting against the bloodthirsty silverfishes either. He withdrew and bolted through the waters like a fish, leaving a stream of ripples in his wake. In the blink of an eye, he had already entered the tomb. Everyone's eyes lit up. Shi Jian could not help but praise, Brother Su, your combat strength and movement techniques don't seem to be affected even in the waters. Impressive. Su Zimo was puzzled regarding that as well. Normally speaking, demon beasts or human cultivators of the land would naturally be affected in terms of combat strength and movement technique upon entering water. After all, most demon beasts and cultivators were used to living life on land and their physical structures and habits were starkly distinct from living beings underwater. It was impossible for them to adapt to a foreign environment underwater. Furthermore, there was water resistance that intensified the deeper they were underwater. However, for some unknown reason, Su Zimo could not feel that resistance when he was in the waters and adapted almost instantly. His body seemed to be one with the waters around him. It was as though he had grown up living underwater. Of course, that was merely a fleeting thought for Su Zimo that he did not bother much about. After everyone entered the tomb, the bloodthirsty silverfishes at the back swarmed after them. However, all of them paused in front of the 9-palace diagram with wary expressions and did not dare to advance. After lingering for a moment, the bloodthirsty silverfishes slowly dispersed. Bang! Boom! Boom! Right then, the stone door descended slowly and sealed the tomb once again. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief and surveyed their surroundings. They were welcomed with a spacious passage that was huge and grand. A night luminance bead the size of a fist was hung on the walls on both sides, spaced 100 feet apart. The night luminance beads illuminated the entire passage as bright as daylight. Wow, these are good stuff. The spirit tiger glared at the night luminance beads above his head and almost drooled. Fatty, you're quite something. Shi Jian thumped little Fatty on the shoulder and praised, "You've truly learned many things during these years you spent in Tomb Sect." Whether it was his means at locating the tomb or the complex steps he took at the entrance of the tomb earlier, everyone was in awe. If little Fatty had not led the way, they would have never found this place even if they had 100 years in the ancient battlefield. Even if they managed to find it, they wouldn't have been able to enter. This great opportunity was given to everyone by little Fatty. Phoo! Little Fatty smiled and did not say anything. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. Something seemed to be wrong with the way little Fatty was acting. Earlier on at the entrance of the tomb, little Fatty was already stoned for a long time and had a grim expression when he looked at the 9-palace diagram. Given his character, he should have been cheering a long time ago after they entered the tomb. However, he seemed somewhat dejected at the moment. What's wrong? Su Zimo asked, did something happen? Little Fatty grit his teeth. We might be late. The moment the spirit tiger heard that, he got anxious and asked, what do you mean by late? Little Fatty replied darkly, along the way, I did not catch sight of anything suspicious, so I thought that we were the first to enter this place. However, it was clear from the 9-palace diagram at the entrance of the tomb that someone arrived before us. Ah! Everyone looked shocked. Little Fatty explained, tens of thousands of years have passed and there should be a thick layer of dust on the ground at the entrance of the tomb. However, from the 9-palace diagram, it's obvious that someone has arrived before us and wiped away the dust on the surface of the ground. Even if he wiped away the dust, he might not have been able to enter this place. The Golden Lion said, the 9-palace diagram is extremely complex. There's only a few people in this world that can crack it. At that point, the Golden Lion suddenly went silent. Everyone exchanged glances and a thought crossed their minds. If little Fatty could locate this place and crack the seal of the 9-palace diagram, this meant that there was a high chance little Fatty's senior brother could do the same. Instantly, much of everyone's joy earlier on was erased. If little Fatty's senior brother had arrived first, he would definitely not leave any treasures for them. The utmost treasure of the tomb would naturally be taken away as well. Ugh! The spirit tiger sighed and murmured dejectedly, what a wet blanket. We made the trip for nothing. He gazed at the night luminance beads above his head. How about removing these night luminance beads? We can't possibly leave with nothing. Ching Ching frowned and kicked the spirit tiger for the latter to shut his mouth. Your senior brother is definitely rather capable if he managed to arrive first. Su Zimo said darkly, there was no blood stench or signs of any fights that happened after we entered the lake. This proved that he managed to avoid the detection of the ancient frost crocodile, bloodthirsty silverfishes, and many other extinct life forms to enter this tomb successfully. At that point, a vague thought flickered through Su Zimo's mind. However, he could not figure out what he was thinking about exactly. Little Fatty shook his head. I know my senior brother very well. Although he's definitely stronger than me in combat, he isn't at the level where he can completely avoid detection from everyone. An expert is definitely helping him out. Let's go. Su Zimo remarked, since we're already here, we've got to head in no matter what. We can't just turn and leave. Little Fatty took a deep breath and nodded. Boss is right. Let's enter. He walked right at the front so that he could react to any changes. After all, he knew best about the types of traps, seals and formations in this tomb. Su Zimo followed at the back of the group. The passage was extremely long, and although it was lit up, their surroundings were quiet and eerie with the sounds of their footsteps echoing. Su Zimo looked increasingly grim. He had not let his guard down at all. Little Fatty's senior brother was much scarier than he had imagined. He had not noticed any signs of anyone else's presence in this place along the way. If Little Fatty had not noticed something unusual at the entrance of the tomb, nobody would know that someone else had arrived here. A while later, they finally arrived at the end of the passage and the place opened up. They had arrived at a majestic and spacious chamber. Greenish bronze coffins were placed in all four corners of the chamber, and the place had a morbid aura. The wall on the opposite end of the tomb revealed 16 passages, each dark and creepy without the light from the night luminance beads. Everyone had a vague idea of what the tomb master was up to. The chamber before them was definitely not the main tomb, only one of the 16 passages led to the right one. If they chose the wrong one, they might never be able to return. Little Fatty stood where he was and calculated for a long time before pointing to the 7th passage from the left. This way. With that said, he prepared himself to step into the chamber. Su Zimo frowned slightly and said with a grim expression, "There's something odd about this chamber. Everyone, watch out." Chapter 688, Mighty Figure Skeleton. Chapter 688, Mighty Figure Skeleton. Su Zimo's spirit perception was not too useful in that morbid chamber. However, the moment he caught sight of the chamber, he sensed danger that disappeared immediately after. Legend has it that ancient mighty figures had boundless dermic powers, and their means could even conceal heavenly secrets, let alone Su Zimo's spirit perception. "It's fine, follow me." Little Fatty smiled and headed towards the 7th passage. Su Zimo and the rest followed closely behind. The spirit tiger looked around furtively. "Boss, Fatty, the 4 coffins look extremely old and no one has opened them before. Let's go and check out if there's any treasures hidden within." The spirit tiger snickered. "Don't go." Su Zimo shook his head with a fierce gaze. The spirit tiger straightened up immediately after meeting Su Zimo's gaze and no longer dared to entertain those thoughts. Suddenly, a commotion broke out in all 4 corners of the chamber. Crack. 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 It was piercing and sounded as though the coffin lids were being shifted. Click. Clack. Click. The next moment, an even creepier sound echoed through the chamber. Everyone subconsciously turned towards the sounds. As though they were moved by someone, the 4 coffins revealed massive gaps and dense shadows crawled out from within. Like a flood, they swarmed towards everyone at an extremely fast speed. Carrion beetles. Little Fatty could not help but exclaim. The shadows were swarms of carrion beetles. Every single carrion beetle was dark as ink, the size of an adult's palm, and carried heavy shells on their bags. Their 6 scarlet legs danced and were extremely sharp. Although they had no eyes and ears, they could sense everyone's location clearly. Everyone's faces turned pale. The little fox was so scared that she hid in Su Zimo's embrace a long time ago and did not dare to look up. "Hurry, let's go!" Su Zimo shouted. Everyone soared into the air and bolted towards the 7th passage. The carrion beetles soared into the air along with them like black water currents, surging from all directions to seal all the exits. Su Zimo was about to attack when he saw Ching Ching turn into her true form. She reared her head and screeched, churning her bloodline as the temperature around her rose rapidly. Opening her mouth, she spewed out green flames in all directions as she turned her head. The green flames formed an impenetrable barrier. Although the carrion beetles were deadly, everything in life had a counter to them. They too had things they were fearful of. They feared the flames of divine beings. The flames that were released through Qing Qing's bloodline were not ordinary flames of the mortal realm. These were flames used by the legendary bird, Bifong, and were comparable to the flames of the soaring serpent. The black carrion beetle swarm surged over and stopped instantly against the green barrier as countless carrion beetles screeched miserably in the flames. They fell, struggled and turned into ashes. Everyone was invigorated. With the flames of the Bifong, they could definitely break through the obstruction of the carrion beetles and enter the passage on the opposite end. Boom! 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 Suddenly, loud explosions reverberated from the four corners of the chamber and a shuddering aura descended, engulfing every corner of the chamber. Everyone shivered. Against that aura, even the raring flames of the Bifong showed signs of extinguishing. So strong. Su Zimo took a deep breath. He did not have time to think as he circulated his golden core to its limits immediately to release his phenomenon. Bang! Boom! Boom! The firmament cracked opening as thunder roared and lightning flashed. Countless stars and meteors fell with river currents surging. A massive demon beast descended and suppressed the raging currents with its limbs, protecting everyone beneath it as it held up the broken firmament with its shell. It roared into the skies and its eyes were unyielding. The primordial divine turtle had descended. At the same time, four powerful auras had already torn through the carrion beetles and the flames of the Bifong and arrived before everyone. It was 4 sets of skeletons. To be precise, these were 4 skeletons from tens of thousands of years ago. The bones were pristine and perfect after thousands of years. This implied that the owners of the 4 skeletons were definitely mighty figures of the conjoint body realm in the past. Conjoint body mighty figures cultivated for tens of thousands of years, and their bones were infused with their dermic powers such that they would not corrode. Snap! The skeletons were expressionless against the primordial divine turtle. A sinister glint shone in their glabella as they struck together and shattered the divine turtle instantly. The golden core phenomenon was shattered the moment it was conjured. Although the 4 skeletons had lost their dermic powers a long time ago, the power their bones contained was enough to shatter the golden core phenomenon with ease. Even a single set of skeleton was enough to kill everyone present, let alone 4. Su Zimo's golden core was interconnected to the primordial divine turtle. The moment it shattered, the blow caused him to spit a mouthful of blood as he hurriedly thought of a way to deal with things. The scarlet glint in Monkey's eyes flashed furiously and it was ready to enter the berserk state at any moment. Little Fatty seemed to be scared stiff and was thinking about something. Everyone else had frightfully pale faces and despair in their eyes. Against the skeletons of mighty figures, their powers were as insignificant as ants. Oh my! All of a sudden, Little Fatty seemed to have recalled something and exclaimed. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood before chanting a complex incantation. With the augmentation of the incantation, that mouthful of blood hovered in midair and did not disperse. The 4 skeletons stopped their attacks as well. However, the glints in their glabellas were still flickering. The incantation was recited with increasing haste. A thin layer of sweat filled Little Fatty's forehead as well. Gradually, the mouthful of blood was divided into 4 drops that floated to the heads of the 4 skeletons before descending slowly. The glint on the glabellas of the 4 skeletons were gradually extinguished. Turning back, the 4 skeletons returned to their coffins in the corners of the chamber and crawled within before closing the lid after themselves. The surrounding carrion beetle swarms retreated slowly back into the coffins as well and disappeared before long. Boom! The coffins were once more. Peace returned to the chamber. If not for the smoking carcasses of the carrion beetles on the ground, it would seem as though everything that happened earlier was an illusion. What is this? Shi Jian was drenched in cold sweat as he panted and asked. The 4 coffins could be considered as a trump card left behind by the Tomb Master. If outsiders were to intrude upon this place, those existences would be alarmed and they would kill the outsiders. Little Fatty explained with trepidation as well. After heaving a breath, he continued, the incantation earlier was from the supreme classic of Tomb's sect, Astounding Dragon Sutra. It's something that every single legacy disciple has to memorize, but nobody knows what it is used for nor have they ever used it. However, Master once mentioned that at a critical juncture, that incantation can be used to prove one's identity as a disciple of Tomb's sect. Normally speaking, tombs of other cultivators would not have such frightening killing techniques left behind. Naturally, there was no use for that incantation and it was useless most of the time. However, the owner of this tomb had set down countless restrictions to ensure that his legacy is only passed down to those in Tomb's sect. With that, there was a purpose for the incantation. This time round, Shi Jian understood as he said with lingering fear, no matter what, I'm never entering another tomb of Tomb's sect again. Suddenly, Su Zimo said, let's talk about this later, little fatty. Hurry and locate the main tomb. Earlier on, I sensed some activity in the depths of this tomb. There are others here. You mean to say, little fatty's eyes lit up. There was a high chance that his senior brother had only arrived slightly before him and had yet to leave. Chapter 689, Paths of Life and Death. Chapter 689, Paths of Life and Death. Under Little Fatty's lead, everyone rushed into the seventh passage. After countless maneuvers and turns, a spot of light appeared at the front, that was clearly the end of the passage. Everyone was invigorated and made haste. After exiting the passage, their vision opened up and they found themselves in yet another tomb chamber. This time round, there were 8 dark passages on the other end of the chamber. It was clear that they had to make another decision. Everyone turned in unison to Little Fatty. He brought out the geomantic compass and oriented it according to Tomb's sect's secret technique. When he opened it, the magnetic needle gradually stabilized and pointed towards one of the passages. Little Fatty blurted, "This way." Before he finished speaking, he had already darted inside. They arrived at yet another chamber at the end of that passage. There were 4 passages on the opposite end. Shi Jian was out of breath and speechless. There's really something wrong in the heads of you guys from Tomb's sect. Isn't this way too cautious? Little Fatty brought out the geomantic compass once more and received directions before long. He bolted towards the passage on the most left and everyone followed hot on his heels. The spirit tiger shrugged his huge head and said confidently, "If I'm not wrong, at the end of this passage, there should be another chamber with 2 passages." Little Fatty nodded. "You're right. There were a total of 32 diversionary tombs outside. Earlier on, there were 16, 8 and 4 passages, so there should be 2 at the end of this passage. I'm awesome, right?" The spirit tiger inched closer to Ching Ching and remarked smugly. Ching Ching pouted her lips. Indeed, when they exited from the passage, they were met with another chamber with 2 passages opposite. Above the passage on the left was a gigantic word, life. Above the passage on the right was a gigantic word, death. The paths of life and death were right in front of them. Everyone had to make a choice once again. They turned their heads in unison towards the geomantic compass in Little Fatty's hands. At that moment, the magnetic needle of the geomantic compass was in complete chaos and spun wildly. "What's happening?" Su Zimo frowned slightly. Little Fatty had a grim expression and said in a dark tone, "The feng shui of this place is chaotic and the geomantic compass is useless here. This is the final test left behind by the tomb master. One of these paths must definitely lead to the true main tomb. How should we choose?" Su Zimo asked. "I don't know." Little Fatty shook his head and pondered. "Hey, aren't you awesome? Choose one then." Ching Ching nudged the spirit tiger's ribs and pointed forward while whispering. The spirit tiger coughed gently. The path of life might not necessarily be life and the path of death might not necessarily lead to death. The 2 words above were left behind by the tomb master to confuse the later generations. In my opinion, the path of death is the true path to life. Extreme sorrow turns to joy, life is sought in death. Monkey thumped the spirit tiger on the shoulder. Not bad, perverted tiger. I know, right? The spirit tiger raised his head. Little Fatty had a pensive expression. Given the Tomb Master's wary nature, coupled with the series of traps and formations he set previously, there was a chance that the spirit tiger's deduction was accurate. The little fox hopped out of Su Zimo's embrace and spun, transforming into a young lady. She walked towards the path of life on the left and sensed her surroundings in silence. A moment later, she headed towards the path of death. The moment she approached it, her expression changed and she staggered backwards instinctively. What's wrong? Everyone swarmed forward and asked. When they arrived at the path of death, their expressions changed as well. Everyone smelled a strong blood stench from within. In fact, there were even howls of ghosts and wolves in the depths of the passage, as though countless living beings were struggling in misery. It was unnerving. The passage was like a gateway to hell. As for the path of life, there was a spring breeze that was filled with life. It was like paradise. It was no wonder why they were distinct paths of life and death. Ching Ching analyzed, there's a high chance that there's an actual tomb at the end of the path of life, and that should be where the main tomb is. That's right, we've got the same idea, the spirit tiger smirked in a pandering manner. The golden lion nodded. We can only move in reverse. This path with the torrential blood stench may very well be the true path of life. It can't be. Suddenly, Su Zimo shook his head and rejected everyone's guesses. The auras within the passages are so obvious and clear. Why would the Tomb Master need to go through the hassle of adding the words life and death above their respective passages? Everyone was stunned. Su Zimo was right. From that perspective, there was no need for the Tomb Master to leave those words behind. Little Fatty asked, "What do you think, boss?" Su Zimo said darkly, "Those words should be instructions left behind for the later generation by the Tomb Master. The passage with life is the true path to life and the other passage leads to an irreversible path of death." Almost everyone had overcomplicated the issue. However, nobody thought that the path of life truly led to life while the path of death truly led to death. Little Fatty slapped his thighs. "I trust in boss. Let's head down the path of life." "How about this?" Su Zimo said, "I'll head down this path with Little Fatty first and you guys can wait outside. If we don't return within an hour." "There's no need." Monkey waved his arm. An additional person means an additional helping hand. Even if the end of the passage is hell, we'll be able to break out of it together. "That's right. We'll go together." The spirit tiger and everyone else stood out and shouted as well. "All right, let's do it then." Su Zimo nodded and withdrew his blood quencher from his storage bag, walking at the front with Little Fatty. They were not only facing the possible dangers of the tomb, they also had to face the people who had arrived here before them. In less than 15 minutes, a light shone at the front of the tunnel. Everyone was invigorated. They knew that they had chosen the right path. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Everyone rushed towards the front at full speed. The moment they arrived at the entrance, danger flashed through Su Zimo's mind as he yelled, "Watch out!" A shadow the size of a finger swept over like a spirit snake. Blood quencher quivered and shone brightly scarlet. Su Zimo slashed in reverse towards the shadow. Su Zimo's expression changed. He did not manage to sever the shadow with that slash. Instead, the shadow coiled a couple loops around Blood Quencher before slithering towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo was decisive and abandoned Blood Quencher right away. He fell to the ground and was almost one with it, slithering away like an anaconda. Without catching sight of the attacker's appearance, Su Zimo followed the shadow before him and threw out a punch. It transformed into a gigantic seal that descended fiercely. That was a killing move from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. The person wore gray robes and did not panic nor fluster. Wielding an iron ruler, the person tapped on Su Zimo's wrist at an extremely fast speed. A puzzled look flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. The gray-robed cultivator's motion looked familiar. Chapter 690, I'll recognize you even if you turn into ashes. Chapter 690, I'll recognize you even if you turn into ashes. If the gigantic seal conjured by Su Zimo's palm continued descending, his wrist would be snapped by the iron ruler in the gray-robed cultivator's hands before the latter was even injured. Su Zimo harumphed coldly and his eyes shone. He switched tactics immediately and instead of punching, he opened up his fingers to grab the gray-robed cultivator's iron ruler. The gray-robed cultivator knew the consequences of this as well. His iron ruler would definitely be snatched away if Su Zimo got his hands on it. Swash! Retracting his attack right away, the gray-robed cultivator retreated. Su Zimo had expected that. After missing, he strode forward and threw a punch. The gray-robed cultivator's other hand was nimble and swiftly conjured a massive chessboard in his palm, using it to defend. The spirit art was extremely domineering. The moment the chessboard appeared, almost all the spirit chi in the surrounding was absorbed completely. Boom! Su Zimo's fist collided heavily against the chessboard and let out a resounding bang. Snap! The chessboard shattered. The gray-robed cultivator staggered a few steps back but was not injured. There were few cultivators who could defend against a full-powered frontal attack from Su Zimo. Shrugging his arm that was growing numb, the gray-robed cultivator looked up at Su Zimo. Suddenly, his expression changed as he exclaimed, "It's you?" Su Zimo was motionless and did not continue with his attacks. He glared at the gray-robed cultivator on the opposite end with bright eyes. The gray-robed cultivator was slightly rotund and had ordinary features. He wielded an iron ruler but there were no sect badges or tokens on him. Su Zimo raised his brow and asked with a narrowed gaze, "You know me?" Humph. The gray-robed cultivator avoided Su Zimo's gaze and harumphed. Footsteps sounded. Monkey and the others had already rushed up and surrounded the gray-robed cultivator with unfriendly, fierce gazes. Little Fatty rushed over with an imposing aura. The moment he caught sight of the gray-robed cultivator, Little Fatty froze for a moment before asking with a confused look on his face, "Who are you?" Ow! The spirit tiger was even more stunned. "Isn't this guy your senior brother, the guy named Ling Ming?" "No." Little Fatty shook his head. The Golden Lion asked, "How did he enter this place if he's not your senior brother?" This man managed to get through the ancient frost crocodiles, the bloodthirsty silverfishes, unravel the 9 palace diagram and chose all the right passages to get to this place. Little Fatty was extremely puzzled as well. Monkey waved it off and remarked casually, "No matter who he is, let's just kill him and there won't be any problems anymore." The gray-robed cultivator jolted in shock. "Don't attack first." Little Fatty held back Monkey and sized up the gray-robed cultivator. He asked in an unfriendly manner with widened eyes, "You know how to unravel the 9 palace diagram?" "I could unravel something as simple as that when I was 8 years old." The gray-robed cultivator pouted his lips in disdain. "Oh my." The spirit tiger sneered and cursed internally, "This guy that's on the brink of death is even more arrogant than me." Little Fatty was indignant but he did not know how to refute. After all, this person managed to enter this place before him. Clenching his teeth, Little Fatty asked spitefully, "How did you find this place?" "Astral Dragon Sputum Lair?" "Something as easy as this can't be hidden from me," the gray-robed cultivator replied nonchalantly. Repressing the anger in his heart, Little Fatty panted and asked again, "Only disciples of Tomb's sect are able to pass through the first chamber. How did you manage to get through it?" "I walked through it, of course." The gray-robed cultivator snickered with mocking eyes. "Don't tell me that you're so stupid that you went to alarm the 4 coffins in the corners?" "Fuck." Little Fatty was fuming internally. Although he had asked many questions, he did not get any answers. They still knew nothing about the background of this gray-robed cultivator. They had no clue how this person managed to get in as well. Su Zimo patted little Fatty on the shoulder and gestured for the latter to retreat. Turning to the gray-robed cultivator not far away, he asked again with a fake smile, "You know me?" The gray-robed cultivator rolled his eyes and pouted. "The great monster incarnate of divine Phoenix Island who annihilated Glass Palace in the ancient battlefield, the one who has a double phenomenon, Su Zimo." "Who doesn't know you?" "Okay." Su Zimo retracted his smile and said indifferently with a cold expression, "Since you know that much, all the more I can't let you go." "Hey!" The moment the gray-robed cultivator heard that, he panicked. "What are you talking about? We don't have any deep feud between us and I only wandered into this place by accident. I didn't lay my hands on anything in this tomb. Why are you trying to kill me?" This main tomb was extremely huge. It was like a gigantic palace. There were many things arranged neatly in the palace filled with dust. Indeed, they did not seem like they had been touched. Little Fatty had a hesitant expression. He could not bring himself to kill this person just because he wandered into this tomb. Su Zimo was expressionless and his eyes were filled with cold killing intent. "There's no other way. Since you know so many things, I have to kill you." "Fuck dash." The gray-robed cultivator nearly cursed. When he saw how worked up the gray-robed cultivator was, Su Zimo was delighted and greeted with a wide beam, "Long time no see, Lin Xuanji." "Ow." Monkey and the others were initially prepared to attack, but when they heard that, they were all stunned. A nervous look flashed through the gray-robed cultivator's eyes as he looked all around, asking pretentiously with a lost expression, "Who are you talking to, fellow Taoist?" Su Zimo smiled coldly. "Lin Xuanji, stop pretending." The gray-robed cultivator's expression changed. A moment later, he reached out and removed an extremely thin mask from his face. The man was pale with no beard and had a dignified appearance. It was Lin Xuanji whom Su Zimo met in the Dragon Bone Valley. Lin Xuanji glared at Su Zimo and remarked fiercely, "Bloody hell, how did you recognize me even with my disguise?" Su Zimo smiled gently. "I'll recognize you even if you turn into ashes." In reality, back when they entered the tomb, a thought had already crossed Su Zimo's mind. However, he did not think too much about it. Lin Xuanji was someone who had the capabilities to avoid the ancient frost crocodiles and bloodthirsty silverfish's senses and sneak his way into the tomb. Previously, countless cultivators were buried in the forest outside the Dragon Bone Valley. However, Lin Xuanji was perfectly fine. It was as though the ferocious beasts could not see him at all. This man's methods and background were extremely mysterious and Su Zimo knew nothing about them initially. Later on, when he learned about the super sects of Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo realized that there was a high chance this person came from the most mysterious faction of Tianhuang mainland, Enigma Palace. The moment he exchanged blows with Lin Xuanji earlier on, Su Zimo confirmed the latter's identity. Back in the Dragon Bone Valley, the two of them exchanged blows briefly and Lin Xuanji managed to dispel his sanguine ape fist seal easily with his folding fan. It was the exact same technique that he had used earlier on. A playful look flashed through Su Zimo's eyes as he mocked, "You're quite something, aren't you? The successor of Enigma Palace coming all the way here to rob someone else's tomb. Humph, no one would be able to recognize me if it wasn't for you." Lin Xuanji grunted in displeasure. He made full preparations for this trip. Notwithstanding the mask that could alter his appearances, he even hid away his folding fan intentionally and replaced it with an iron ruler. To think that he would be recognized immediately upon bumping into Su Zimo. Chapter 691, Fortune. Chapter 691, Fortune. Judging from their tone, it seemed like they knew one another a long time ago and had a good relationship. With that, everyone's expressions eased gradually. The tension in the air cleared up as well. "So, you're a fellow Taoist from Enigma Palace. That explains your capabilities." As a disciple of one of the 5 heretical doctrines, Tomb Sect, Little Fatty had naturally heard of the famous Enigma Palace. It was a great sect created by the ancient expert, Fairy Ling Long, that has its roots traced back to history. Enigma Palace was the host for every generation's Golden Core phenomenon ranking. Enigma Palace did not have many disciples, and there would only be a single legacy disciple for every generation to roam the secular realm. The disciples of Enigma Palace that roamed the secular realm were the most mysterious, and almost nobody knew how strong they were. However, apart from the successors of Tomb's sect, among the successors of the other super sects, the successor of Enigma Palace had the highest chance of locating this place. Su Zimo knew about Lin Xuanji's capabilities a long time ago. Back then, this was the person who infiltrated the Dragon Bone Valley stealthily and brought him along to escape alive. Lin Xuanji put away the iron ruler in his hands and withdrew his folding fan once more, saying embarrassedly, "You guys sure got here quick. I haven't had time to take anything yet." Su Zimo smiled. "Don't dream about it. This is the tomb of Tomb's sect." Little Fatty waved it off. "It's fine, since you're a friend of Boss, you can take anything you fancy in here as well apart from the utmost treasure of our sect." Lin Xuanji's eyes lit up when he heard that. Su Zimo sensed that something was amiss. That was when Lin Xuanji snickered. "Fellow Daoist, you sure are easygoing. However, I'm also not a greedy person. I won't take a single treasure within the tomb." "Humph." Su Zimo sneered, "Stop pretending. I know your character well enough." Previously, Lin Xuanji had already coveted Night Spirit for a long time after noticing that the latter had an unusual bloodline. There was no way he would return empty-handed with so many treasures here. Lin Xuanji's mouth cramped for a moment as he ignored Su Zimo and said, "The reason why I'm here isn't for the treasures in the tomb. It's for the dragon vein here." "You want to take the dragon vein away?" Su Zimo frowned. "That's right." Lin Xuanji nodded and turned to Little Fatty. "The dragon vein here is man-made. Although it was prepared for you by the Tomb Master, given your strength, even if you get your hands on the utmost treasure of Tomb's sect, you'll only be able to receive 50% of it. If you take in too much fortune, you won't be able to absorb it completely as well. Too much of something will bring about an adverse effect, and at that time, you will only bring upon disaster to yourself." Little Fatty remained silent. He knew that Lin Xuanji was not exaggerating. The dragon vein represented fortune. This mighty figure of Tomb's sect set up the astral dragon sputum lair and connected to heaven and earth, gathering the fortune of the ancient battlefield to form this dragon vein. It took a few tens of thousands of years before it was fully formed in this era. Fortune was something that was incorporeal and illusory. Although Fairy Ling Long was not an emperor, her status in the ancient era was extraordinary. It was not only because she was the wife of the human emperor. More than that, she was a legendary wielder of great fortune who could divine everything, predict blessings and disasters, and even steal a glimpse of the heavenly secrets. It was due to her capabilities that the human race managed to gain the upper hand in the ancient war, avoiding countless calamities that would have wiped out the race. The primordial 9 races hated her to the core. Legend has it that in the ancient war, in order to gain the upper hand, the primordial 9 races sent countless experts in their races to ambush and assassinate Fairy Ling Long, but to no avail. Although fortune had no form to itself, it truly existed. Anyone who possessed great fortune could convert disasters into blessings and even meet with more opportunities. Although fortune would not bring about a direct raise to a cultivator's combat strength or any visible changes, it's held an imperative importance to the cultivator's future. Experts who could cultivate to the level of mighty figure or patriarch were all blessed with fortune. If they were surrounded by bad luck, they would have died a long time ago at the Qi condensation or foundation establishment realm. In fact, it would be considered lucky if they only died at old age. Notwithstanding the experts that were so strong they were out of reach, even for the true paragons from the various super sects that entered the ancient battlefield this time round, the 108 on the Golden Core phenomenon ranking, all of them had met with an immortal fate. All of them had entered an ancestral cave or ancient ruin. All of them had obtained a legacy left behind by some experts. Lin Xuanji said, "If you absorb 50% of the dragon vein, the remaining of it will dissipate into the world. Rather than letting that happen, you might as well let me take the rest." The spirit tiger rolled his eyes and asked, according to your words, the 7 of us brothers can absorb the dragon vein as well. How can we let you be the only one getting all the benefits? Yes. The golden lion nodded as well. This time round, Qing did a rare act of not refuting the spirit tiger. Lin Xuanji said with a fake smile, sure thing. If you can manage to snatch the dragon vein away, go ahead. You don't have to care about me. Remember those words. Don't regret them later on. The spirit tiger said. Lin Xuanji swore honestly, I won't regret. Great. The spirit tiger said, first, tell us how to absorb this dragon vein. Lin Xuanji rolled his eyes. Su Zimo was speechless and broke into a chuckle. Don't ask any further. The method to absorb the dragon vein is definitely a secret skill of Enigma Palace. There's no way he'll impart it to outsiders. The spirit tiger scratched his head. Doesn't that mean that we can only stand by the sidelines and watch? Since Fatty has already said that there are so many treasures in the palace, just take one of them, Su Zimo smiled. Ah, all right. The spirit tiger grinned. He had already set his sights on the treasures that filled the tomb a long time ago and was just waiting for Su Zimo to say that. There were 2 stone shelves on both sides of the palace that spanned several thousand feet into the depths. On the left stone shelf was weapons, rare ores and materials, there was everything. On the right shelf was secret cultivation techniques of all kinds. With a casual glance, Su Zimo even caught sight of many secret skills from the immortal, Buddhist and fiend super sects. Amazing. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. Those were the treasures amassed by the Tomb sect mighty figure during his lifetime. Monkey and the others were not interested in cultivation techniques for humans. After condensing their essence spirits, they would innately inherit some of the memories of their race that was hidden deep in the bloodlines. There would be demonic techniques suitable for them. They walked towards the stone shelf on the left right away. It was rare for demons to get their hands on a weapon suitable for them. This was a rare opportunity. Su Zimo was also looking to seek a treasure for Little Fox. Previously, her fire-blocking basket wouldn't have been taken away by Dao being Xianyu if she hadn't been trying to save him. That was the only thing left behind for Little Fox by her mother. Monkey and the others meandered along the stone shelf down. In between, they caught sight of many supreme grade and even some perfect dermic weapons with 5 dermic patterns. However, they did not take any of them. They had to be extremely careful if they could only choose one. Suddenly, Monkey paused in his tracks and his gaze lingered on a rusty long rod. Monkey lifted the rod and observed it carefully. There was nothing special about the rod. In fact, it did not even have any dermic patterns on it and it was rusted all over. The only thing that was special was that it would shimmer with a faint golden glow from time to time when it was moved. It was not a dermic weapon. However, the moment Monkey picked up that iron rod, Su Zimo realized that the corner of Lin Xuanji's eyes twitched for a moment. Chapter 692, Great Rewards. Chapter 692, Great Rewards. Although Su Zimo did not know the origin of the iron rod, he knew that Lin Xuanji had a sharp eye for things. He was about to tell Monkey to take the iron rod. However, Monkey had already turned to little Fatty. Fatty, I want this rod. Sure, no problem. Little Fatty was in a great mood and agreed to it readily. Heis. Su Zimo's ears twitched and he could vaguely hear a faint sigh from Lin Xuanji. Chuckling internally, Su Zimo walked over and whispered, Brother Lin, what's the origin of that iron rod? How should I know? Lin Xuanji rolled his eyes and was not willing to elaborate. Why did you sigh then? Fuck. You could even hear that. Lin Xuanji went silent for a moment with widened eyes before pouting his lips. I don't know what that thing is exactly, but I know it's definitely something good. It's not weaker than a connate dermic weapon. Pust. Su Zimo gasped. That evaluation was rather remarkable. Lin Xuanji explained, there are too many sacred, mysterious and divine objects in this world. Those aren't things that man-made weapons can ever compare against. Su Zimo understood. For example, the divine phoenix bone in his right hand did not have any dermic patterns, but it was stronger than any other dermic weapon. Monkey looked around casually for a random piece of cloth to tie the rod and carry it behind him. The spirit tiger walked down along the right shelf and was in awe. There were too many treasures that it made him giddy. He picked up a long saber with a chilling aura. After tens of thousands of years, the saber was still sharp as ever and gave off a chilling intent. Its blade was almost transparent with patterns etched on it. It was like a work of God. It was a perfect dermic weapon. Although the spirit tiger was in love with it, he placed it back reluctantly after playing with it for a long time. A while later, he picked up a spear and played with it, looking truly ferocious. A moment later, he placed the spear back as well. Ugh! The spirit tiger sighed once more. If only he could take away all the treasures. As he walked, he suddenly sensed something and shifted his gaze to a corner of the shelf. There were 4 hooks. The spirit tiger walked forward and picked up the 4 hooks. He wiped away the dust on them and revealed the hooks that were white as jade and almost transparent. There were no patterns on them. They did not seem like they were crafted from any metal ores. For some unknown reason, the moment the spirit tiger picked up the hooks, he felt his bloodline stir and a mysterious sensation in his heart. It was as though the 4 hooks were related to him. The spirit tiger's heart skipped a beat as he circulated his inner core to form his tiger's paw and extended his sharp claws. They do look similar. The spirit tiger grinned. He discovered that his claws were similar to the 4 hooks. The spirit tiger extended his claws and touched the hooks in his hand. Piak! It was a casual touch. However, the spirit tiger's claws were cut apart neatly by the hooks in his hand right away. How sharp! Su Zimo's pupils constricted slightly upon seeing that. After cultivating the Void Thunder Manual, the spirit tiger's bloodline was extraordinary. Even Blood Quencher would have difficulty cutting through the sharpness and toughness of his claws. Bloody hell, what's this lousy thing? It destroyed my claws. The spirit tiger was stunned and cursed in a huff, prepared to toss the 4 jade-like hooks back. All of a sudden, by accident, the spirit tiger's fingernails made contact with the hooks. Instantly, fresh blood gushed and stained the hooks red. The next moment, something even scarier happened. The hooks moved up along the spirit tiger's fingertips uncontrollably and dug its way inside slowly. The veins of the fingers were connected to one's heart. Ah! The spirit tiger reared its head and howled in misery, moving his palm by instinct. With that, the remaining 3 hooks pierced his palm. When they made contact with the spirit tiger's fresh blood, the remaining 3 hooks fused into his palm as well. The entire process happened extremely swiftly, and by the time Su Zimo realized, the 4 hooks had already vanished, leaving behind the spirit tiger who was rolling on the ground in extreme pain. Ah! 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 The spirit tiger let out a deep growl. Crackle! His bones and tendons rang at the same time and his bloodline surged. Instantly, he reverted to his true form and a faint, terrifying aura emanated from his body with a torrential ferocity. The skin of the spirit tiger had already started tearing and his flesh was rupturing. The next moment, he recovered once again. Su Zimo and Lin Xuanji's expressions changed slightly as they exclaimed at the same time, complete body transformation. The spirit tiger was undergoing a great opportunity. The progenitor of the opportunity was the 4 hooks. Lin Xuanji said deeply, if I'm not wrong, there's a high chance the 4 hooks are the claws of a divine being of the tiger race. Right now, the spirit tiger has no use for them. Once he cultivates his essence spirit, he will be able to utilize them. An hour later, the spirit tiger's tragic screams subsided. A moment later, he turned into his human form once more and leaped up from the ground. Without using much strength, he could already leap to a height of 100 feet. It was clear that he had undergone a complete transformation and received an immense boost to his strength, bringing his cultivation to the peak of inner core. A single step further and he would be able to cultivate his essence spirit and turn into a fiend demon. On the other side, the golden lion hesitated for a long time before deciding on a saber. It was a perfect dermic weapon. Ching Ching also chose a perfect dermic weapon, but it was a fan. There was a hint of sorrow in her eyes as she gazed at the fan. The fan was azure green in color. Although there was no dermic power in it, it emanated a scorching heat. Su Zimo figured it out instantly. The fan must have been created from the feathers of a bifong. Ching Ching's sorrow must have stemmed from her reminiscing about her father who might have died in the Thousand Spider Sand Dune. On the other side, the little fox hesitated for a long time before deciding on a black umbrella. Why this umbrella? Su Zimo asked. This type of weapon isn't strong offensively. Most of the times, it can only be used defensively. It's fine. She smiled. With this umbrella, when I'm around you, I'll be able to help you block some fatal blows at critical moments. Su Zimo went silent. A moment later, he raised his head and looked at the little fox sincerely. Foxy, don't worry. I'll definitely retrieve that fire-blocking basket for you personally. Ugh. The little fox nodded. I believe in you. Monkey and the others had already chosen the treasures they wanted. However, Su Zimo had no clue still. At the end of the palace was a skeleton draped in robes. That should be the owner of this tomb. Although tens of thousands of years have passed and the flesh and blood of the conjoint body mighty figure had already dried up, his bones were pristine. Legend has it that for Mahayana patriarchs, their flesh would not rot even after 100,000 years have passed. Their physical bodies were truly at the state of indestructibility. The skeleton of the conjoint body mighty figure was not the most catching thing. Behind him, there was a round electric pool that flashed frighteningly with purple lightning. Chapter 693, Yellow Springs Diagram. Chapter 693, Yellow Springs Diagram. In that electric pool, purple lightning flashed and electric snakes slithered. It possessed an extremely terrifying aura, as though it could decimate all living beings. What sort of powers were these? To gather the divine thunder above the 9 heavens at a place as such? Thunder was the toughest and most righteous type of energy in the universe, and it was also the hardest to control. Cultivation techniques involving thunder were the most dangerous, and a single mistake could cause one their lives. Legend has it that after the Mahayana realm was the tiding tribulation realm where a heavenly tribulation would descend. The heavenly tribulation would be created from thunder and was extremely powerful. Even the strongest experts of the world and ancient emperors might not be able to withstand it. If they could not tide through it, even patriarchs or emperors with the divine power of rebirth through blood would have to be annihilated into ashes. Heavenly tribulations were the epitome of the power of thunder. While Su Zimo was pondering, little Fatty had already advanced in front of the mighty figure of Tomb Sect. Although he was only facing a skeleton, there was no hint of disrespect on little Fatty's face. He knelt down and kowtowed 3 times politely to the mighty figure of Tomb Sect. Senior, I entered this place under orders from the sect master to retrieve the utmost treasure of Tomb Sect left behind by the Underworld Emperor. Do forgive me for anything that I have done that might have offended you. Su Zimo's gaze shifted. The mighty figure of Tomb Sect was in a lotus position with one hand on his knees. His other hand pointed to the ground at a diagram that was pieced together before him. Lin Xuanji's gaze shone as he waved the folding fan in his hands and said softly, if I'm not wrong, this should be the Yellow Springs diagram that shook the world in the past. It's a great killing weapon that's said to be able to bury all life and the 6 paths of reincarnation. Unfortunately, when the Underworld Emperor underwent his tribulation transcendence, the Yellow Springs diagram was nearly destroyed after withstanding the power of the heavenly tribulation. That's the reason why it has relegated to the level of a dermic weapon. Ah! Su Zimo exclaimed. He had not imagined that the scroll of the diagram had such an origin. Lin Xuanji continued, however, even so, this was the emperor weapon of the Underworld Emperor. Although it's suffered immense damage and has fallen to such a level, it's not something that ordinary weapons can compare against. Emperor weapon? Su Zimo furrowed his brows in confusion. He knew that Dharma treasures came after Dharmic weapons. If so, where did Emperor weapons come about? Simply put, Emperor weapons are the destiny Dharmic treasures of emperors. They carry with them the force, aura and fortune of the emperors and are even more terrifying. Lin Xuanji gave a brief explanation. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. How terrifying was the power of the heavenly tribulation to be able to relegate an emperor weapon to such a state? With a respectful expression, Little Fatty extended both hands and raised the Yellow Springs diagram before opening it up slowly. Splash! The sound of a river surging and splashing sounded from the Yellow Springs diagram. Everyone turned their gazes over. There was an actual yellow river surging within the Yellow Springs diagram. The Yellow Springs diagram was shrouded by a layer of fog and gave of a terrifying yellow glow, illuminating the entire palace as though it was about to drown it. Everyone felt suffocated. It was not imaginary. Even with Su Zimo's powerful physique, he felt waves of discomfort. Amazing. Lin Xuanji was speechless. Legend has it that when the Yellow Springs descend, it can wash away all the weapons in the world. Even if a perfect grade weapon falls into the Yellow Springs, it will turn into scrap metal. Only Khanate level weapons that can escape in time can survive. Su Zimo lamented as well, to think that even after its fall to this level and countless years, the Yellow Springs diagram can still release such a frightening aura. The Yellow Springs diagram hovered above Little Fatty's head. Little Fatty's eyes were tightly shut and he shuddered. From time to time, his body would glow yellow. He was undergoing a baptism from the Yellow Springs diagram. Layers of black things that were extremely smelly appeared gradually on the surface of Little Fatty's skin. Those were the impurities in his body. The fog released by the Yellow Springs diagram seeped into Little Fatty's body and helped him to cleanse it, purging away as much impurities as it can. This was an opportunity for Little Fatty. Outsiders would not even have the chance to take this away from him. Lin Xuanji pouted his lips in envy. The water of Yellow Springs. That's good stuff. You mean to say that the yellow fog surrounding Little Fatty is the water of Yellow Springs? Su Zimo asked with eyes widened in disbelief. The actual Yellow Springs was deep underground and had one to pass through the gates of death and the bridge of no return. Only dead people could see the Yellow Springs. How could anyone that's alive come into contact with water from the Yellow Springs? This can only be considered as diluted Yellow Springs water. The power contained by the Yellow Springs fog is merely a fraction of 100 million of the power of Yellow Springs water. Lin Xuanji pouted his lips. If it was a drop of water from the actual Yellow Springs, this fatty's body won't be cleansed, it would instantly turn into pus. After pausing for a moment, Lin Xuanji continued, however, the true Yellow Springs does exist within the Yellow Springs diagram. Su Zimo's expression changed. An ancient book within Enigma Palace recorded that the reason why the Yellow Springs diagram became a true emperor weapon was because the Underworld Emperor released his divine powers. With a bold, fearless resolve, he walked through the gates of death and crossed the bridge of no return to retrieve a trickle of Yellow Springs, sealing it within the diagram and turning it into an emperor weapon. Lin Xuanji remarked with slight pity, of course, given the fatty's current capabilities, he won't be able to utilize the diagram. Even after dropping in level, the Yellow Springs diagram was still a Dharmic weapon. If Little Fatty wanted to utilize the Yellow Springs diagram, he would have to first advance to nascent soul realm and cultivate an essence spirit so that he can manipulate Dharmic powers. Everyone stood where they were and waited in silence. None of them wanted to make any reckless moves that could interrupt Little Fatty's opportunity. A full 6 hours passed. Finally, Little Fatty's cleansing came to an end. After the cleansing, Little Fatty turned much skinnier. The inheritance process was not over yet. Splash! Suddenly, a golden core phenomenon appeared behind Little Fatty. A hazy yellow river gushed with ripples and emanated an endless evil aura with many corpses floating in it. The Yellow Springs phenomenon seemed like it wanted to fuse with the Yellow Springs diagram as one. The power of the phenomenon was climbing rapidly. Su Zimo suddenly saw the light. Back when he witnessed Little Fatty fighting against corpse refinement cult cultivators, he already had the feeling that Little Fatty had yet to unleash the true power of the Yellow Springs phenomenon. The Yellow Springs phenomenon could be ranked top 20 in the phenomenon ranking at the very least. It was only now that Su Zimo realized it wasn't because Little Fatty's potential was limited, it was because the utmost treasure of Tomb Sect, the Yellow Springs diagram, was lost in this place. The Yellow Springs diagram contained the true Yellow Springs. The power of the Yellow Springs phenomenon can only be fully comprehended and released after experiencing the aura of the true Yellow Springs. By obtaining the Yellow Springs diagram, Little Fatty's body was not the only thing that would grow stronger. Even his Yellow Spring phenomenon would strengthen and might even reach its glory in the past. This was another long process. It took an entire day before the inheritance process ended. The Yellow Springs diagram fell back into Little Fatty's palms. Bang! Boom! Boom! Suddenly, the entire palace vibrated immensely. It was as though something terrifying had awakened from the depths underground and was prepared to rise. Lin Xuanji's eyes lit up. The birth of the dragon vein. Chapter 694, Dragon Vein. Chapter 694, Dragon Vein. The dragon vein represented fortune. Fortune was incorporeal while the dragon vein was corporeal. Roar. A dragon roar sounded. A ferocious divine dragon surged up from the ground and coiled with its head raised. It arrived in the palace and reared its head, roaring so loudly it could crush rocks and metals. This was not a true dragon and it could not even be compared to the phantom of a divine dragon. It was completely formed from air current and merely possessed the shape of a dragon. The dragon vein was under this place. It was because of the Yellow Springs diagram that the dragon vein could be suppressed. Now that the Yellow Springs diagram had appeared into the world, the dragon vein was finally free of its restrictions as well. The dragon vein was not an actual living being. It was formed by gathering the fortune of the world. After breaking free, its goal was to charge out of the tomb and return to the world. The moment the dragon vein exited the tomb, it would dissipate. The fortune would return to the world none the wiser as to which cultivator in the vicinity would receive a trickle of the dragon vein. All of a sudden, the Yellow Springs diagram shone brightly and flapped without wind. Within it, a hazy yellow wave surged out. It was massive and gushed towards the dragon vein, trying to pull the latter within the Yellow Springs diagram. Roar! 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 The dragon vein howled in midair and struggled repeatedly as it tried to break free of the Yellow Springs absorption. The two different powers were fighting against one another. A moment later, the Yellow Springs diagram seemed like it realized it could not possibly devour the entire dragon vein whole. The yellow river current gathered in a certain spot and smashed against the dragon vein fiercely, breaking up the latter into pieces. The dragon vein dispersed and turned into streams of dragon-shaped air currents that swam wildly in midair. Swoosh! Immediately after, a series of massive waves rose from the Yellow River once more, attempting to drown the 5 parts of the dragon vein and pull them into the Yellow Springs diagram. It was augmenting itself onto Little Fatty's body. It was exactly as Lin Xuanji had predicted. Even with the help of the Yellow Springs diagram, Little Fatty could only absorb 50% of the dragon vein. Lin Xuanji stood out and declared with a confident smile, "Everyone, I won't be standing on courtesy." Lin Xuanji hung the folding fan in his hands casually on his waist and reached out with both hands. He circulated his golden core and conjured a series of spirit arts that were dizzying. As the spirit arts were formed, a massive chessboard filled with black and white chess pieces appeared behind Lin Xuanji, spinning wildly. The chessboard seemed as though it could divine the secrets of the universe and the life of all beings. Go! Lin Xuanji pointed at the front. The chessboard enlarged repeatedly and blanketed the top of the palace. Spiraling slowly, it emitted a mysterious aura. The dragon vein air currents surged wildly in midair, but their path of exit was completely sealed by the chessboard. Hee, don't bother trying to escape. Lin Xuanji smiled brightly and released his spirit perception as streams of spirit light surged from his fingertip into the chessboard. Some of the dragon vein air currents started surging into the chessboard before entering Lin Xuanji's body. Most of the dragon vein air currents shuttled around the palace like headless flies, even passing by Monkey and the others. Ha! The spirit tiger reached out with his massive paws and grabbed onto one of the dragon vein air currents, yelling, "Let's see you run." The dragon vein air current dissipated immediately against his grab. However, the fortune was not augmented onto him. Monkey, the golden lion, Ching Ching and Little Fox all attempted as well, but none of them could catch hold of the dragon vein. How does one get their hands on this stupid thing? The spirit tiger glared at Lin Xuanji with displeasure and a hint of envy as the latter captured the dragon vein. Lin Xuanji remarked gleefully as he controlled the chessboard, "Brother Tiger, character is important when it comes to fortune. Your character just doesn't cut it, haha." In reality, a secret technique was required to capture the dragon vein. To begin with, the founder master of Enigma Palace, Fairy Ling Long, was an expert of great fortune. She naturally understood how to capture the dragon vein as well as the fortune in the world. Monkey and the others were merely demon beasts. There was no way they would understand such things. Fuck. The spirit tiger almost exploded from the smug look on Lin Xuanji's face. The spirit tiger turned to Monkey with a frustrated expression and asked with clenched teeth, "Brother Monkey, can I bash him up?" "Sure." Monkey nodded and continued, "But I doubt you can win him." Spirit tiger. Roar. Suddenly, a shuddering roar echoed through the palace. This roar was extremely similar to the dragon roar earlier on, but it was much more frightening. Majestic in vicissitude, it swept through the 9 heavens in a grand manner. Compared to this roar, the dragon roar released by the dragon vein earlier was akin to the roar of an infant dragon. Everyone turned towards the voice instinctively. Not far away, Su Zimo was motionless. However, there was a divine dragon several dozens feet long coiling around his body. It possessed actual flesh and blood and was lined with dragon scales that shimmered coldly. A series of sharp spikes protruded from the spine of the divine dragon, and it had sharp claws and majestic horns. Its eyes were cold and authoritative as they looked down on the masses. Su Zimo hovered in midair within the coiled dragon wearing his green robes. His black hair danced and his eyes were deep as his aura climbed endlessly like a divine being that was meant to rule over the world. It was as though the divine dragon was a pet of his. Monkey, the spirit tiger and the others had seen Su Zimo release this technique before in the battle at the ancient city and were rather composed. However, Little Fatty and Shi Jian were stupefied. Even Lin Xuanji was dumbfounded and froze on the spot, even forgetting to release his spirit art. A moment later, he muttered, "That's the secret skill of the human emperor, ancient dragonification art." Su Zimo nodded. It was no wonder why Enigma Palace was a super sect of Tianhuang mainland and was related to the human emperor as well. Among everyone of the same generation, Lin Xuanji was the only one who identified the ancient dragonification art. Roar. 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 After the emergence of the ancient dragonification art, the initially chaotic dragon vein air currents in the palace surged towards Su Zimo's body as though they had found a home. It was a spectacular sight, as though hundreds of rivers were converging into the ocean. Fuck. Lin Xuanji snapped to his senses in envy. He arrived at this place painstakingly after crossing through endless traps and not taking any treasures, all for the sake of the dragon vein. Yet, Su Zimo was the one who stood to gain at the end of the day. "Su Zimo, I'll fight you." Lin Xuanji shrieked and circulated his golden core with all his might. His hands formed seals even faster and spirit energy surged even more wildly. A powerful suction force was produced from the chessboard at the top of the palace. However, the stronger the suction force was, the faster the dragon vein air currents converged towards Su Zimo. In less than 10 minutes, 80% of the remaining 50% dragon vein was snatched away by Su Zimo, leaving only 20% for Lin Xuanji. Ha ha ha. That's your due desserts. The spirit tiger roared in laughter at Lin Xuanji's frustrated expression. Good job, brother. Piss him off to death. Little Fox smiled brightly and said aptly, Mr. Lin, your character can't cut it either. In truth, it was only a stroke of inspiration for Su Zimo to release the ancient dragonification art. He had not thought that he would steal away 80% of the remaining dragon vein from Lin Xuanji after releasing the secret skill. Part of the reason was because the dragon vein air current had a closer connection to the aura of the ancient dragonification art. Another person was because this was a secret skill of the human emperor that was created using the secrets of heaven and earth. It was not surprising that it could steal away the fortune from Lin Xuanji's hands. Chapter 695, Still Alive. Chapter 695, Still Alive. The dragon vein that was formed after tens of thousands of years was gradually divided among Little Fatty, Su Zimo and Lin Xuanji. Little Fatty took up 50% with the help of Tomb Sects' Yellow Springs diagram. With the help of the ancient dragonification art, Su Zimo obtained 40%. Lin Xuanji tried his best to release the secret skill of Enigma Palace but only managed to obtain 10% in the end. In the mortal realm, any vassal state that captured a dragon vein could grow swiftly and develop into a dynasty that could dominate over a part of the world. Fortune was something that was illusory and there would be no immediate rise in one's strength after obtaining it. However, it had a huge impact for the future of the cultivator. The greater the fortune, the more opportunities and encounters that would occur. In fact, it could even reach the extent of converting disasters to blessings and altering one's fate. Lin Xuanji gripped his fists tightly and glared at Su Zimo with indignance. He was so worked up that his teeth were chattering. Su Zimo, you're really a jinx. Su Zimo shrugged his shoulders with an innocent expression. Little Fox laughed. Mr. Lin, you said it yourself that the dragon vein will go to whoever is capable of capturing it and you won't regret it at all. I won't regret. I won't regret. Lin Xuanji panted and said gloomily, but I'll feel spite. Monkey and the others watched by the sidelines with gloating expressions as they burst into laughter. Naturally, all of them wished for Su Zimo to obtain the dragon vein. I've realized that nothing good ever comes out of bumping into you. Lin Xuanji sighed and turned even more moody when he thought about what happened during their first encounter at the Dragon Bone Valley. It was the same thing the previous time round. That dragon egg should have been his. However, it was consumed by this seemingly frail scholar and a useless dog. Fuck. 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 Lin Xuanji hopped in rage when he thought about what happened in the past. He rushed in front of Su Zimo and asked spitefully, "Where's that big black dog? Where did it go? I've got to get closer to it now that we haven't seen one another for so many years." Su Zimo spread his hands to both sides and smiled faintly. "It's not with me. Your plans are going to fail again." He could tell right away that Lin Xuanji was harboring designs on Night Spirit again. How unlucky. Lin Xuanji wished that he could slap himself right now as he glared at Su Zimo begrudgingly. "Once we leave this place, let's part ways. I've got to keep my distance from you in the future. I've discovered that everything in this world has their counters. You are born to jinx me." Su Zimo coughed gently and patted Lin Xuanji on the shoulder, saying with a fake serious tone, "Let's not talk about jinxing and whatnot. That's going to hurt our relationship." Humph. Lin Xuanji rolled his eyes. Right then, a sigh echoed from the voids. The next moment, the palace went into dead silence. Everyone stood motionlessly on the spot, as though their limbs were bound by an invisible force. Their expressions were frozen and their eyes were filled with confusion, surprise, and fear. A faint repressing aura engulfed downwards. Against the pressure, all of them felt insignificant like ants. There was another existence in that palace. An existence that was far more powerful than everyone present. An evil gust of wind blew past. The temperature of the entire palace dipped. Everyone's hairs stood on end and they shuddered. Ah! Little Fox was frightened and reverted to her true form, burrowing herself into Su Zimo's embrace as she shuddered. Even the spirit tiger and the golden lion who were manly were now trembling in fear, let alone her. Could you show yourself, senior? Su Zimo took a deep breath and surveyed his surroundings before asking. The aura emanated by the existence was extremely scary. In fact, it could kill any of them in the palace with ease, including him. Rather than lose his wits, Su Zimo chose to stand out and converse with the existence directly. Someone has finally arrived after so many years. The voice rang again, filled with sadness and emotions. Everyone was shocked when they heard that. There was probably only a single person in the tomb who would spout such words. Everyone turned towards the sound. The skeleton that sat in front of the electric pool shifted sinisterly. Possibly because it had not moved for tens of thousands of years, the skeleton creaked as though it could scatter at any moment. Immediately after, right in front of everyone, the skeleton stood up. Pust! Everyone gasped. The golden lion's fur stood on ends and made his entire body seem much larger. Monkey, the spirit tiger and everyone else nearly had their hearts pop out of their throats. Lin Xuanji placed one of his hands behind his back and his fingers moved rapidly as they divined. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and was rather composed. He was not dead. The mighty figure of Tomb Sect from tens of thousands of years ago has survived till now. The mighty figure of Tomb Sect stood up and the robes that were initially draped on his body turned into dust and dispersed, unable to withstand the corrosion of time. There was no flesh on the skeleton. However, there was a faint light spot shining from its glabella, flickering with a sliver of life. Crack! 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 The skeleton turned its head and surveyed everyone with its empty sockets. Finally, it lingered for a moment on Su Zimo before looking away. Su Zimo felt a strange sensation. Although the mighty figure of Tomb Sect had no eyes, Su Zimo could vaguely sense that the mighty figure was looking at him oddly. It was as though the mighty figure was pinning some hopes on him. Su Zimo could not sense any hostility from this mighty figure of Tomb Sect using his spirit perception. Of course, for an expert of that level, if he wanted to kill everyone present, he could even conceal the heavenly secrets with a single thought, let alone escape Su Zimo's spirit perception. Su Zimo looked over to Lin Xuanji at the side. He could not see any fear in Lin Xuanji's eyes at the moment as well. Su Zimo was relieved. The skeleton walked down the steps and closed into Little Fatty, gazing at the Yellow Springs diagram in the latter's hand silently in a daze. Little Fatty was almost frightened to tears. A moment later, the skeleton reached out and grazed its finger gently across the Yellow Springs diagram. It was like a farewell. Little Fatty was almost scared out of his wits in the face of the skeleton and could not think about anything else. He propped up the Yellow Springs diagram with both hands, unsure whether he should hold on to it or pass it over. Senior, I'm only here to retrieve this utmost treasure of Tomb Sect from the orders of the elders. I did not know that you were still alive. Little Fatty's voice was almost whimpering. Senior, although I've got a lot of flesh on my body, I'm not delicious. He was completely scared out of his wits. Fatty. Su Zimo called softly. At that moment, Su Zimo used a Sanskrit secret skill from the Buddhist sects that had the effect of clearing one's mind. Little Fatty had lost his rationality completely at the moment. If he did not sober up, there would be the danger of him veering off onto the wrong path in his future cultivation due to this trauma. His sobbing stopped and his eyes widened, slightly lost. Fatty, sober up. Su Zimo said darkly, if this senior wanted to harm you, he would have done so a long time ago. There's no need for him to let you take away the Yellow Springs diagram and leave the dragon vein of this place for you. When he heard that, Little Fatty was enlightened and his initially flustered heart calmed down gradually. The skeleton looked at Su Zimo deeply and nodded. Chapter 696, Final Farewell. Chapter 696, Final Farewell. Although it was a seemingly insignificant action, it was a form of recognition. Or rather, it was the mighty figure of Tomb's sect expressing his gratitude to Su Zimo. This treasure has followed me for more than 10,000 years. To think that it's still degraded to such a state in the end. The skeleton retracted its palm and looked at little Fatty before saying slowly, "Keep this Yellow Springs diagram well. Once you advance to nascent soul realm, use it as your destiny dermic weapon. Even if it can't reclaim its glory of the past, you'll have to repair it to the state of a Dharma treasure." The pretext of the Yellow Springs diagram turning into a Dharma treasure was for little Fatty to advance to the Mahayana realm. However, how difficult was it to achieve that? Even this Paragon, who was once a titular disciple of Tomb's sect in the past right before them, did not manage to finish that advancement. "Don't worry, Senior, I'll do my best." Little Fatty nodded furiously and put the Yellow Springs diagram away with utmost importance. The skeleton surveyed its surroundings and looked at the nervous spirit tiger, Ching Ching, and everyone else, saying gently, "There's no need to be afraid, I died a long time ago. The only thing remaining in my skeleton is a remnant of my consciousness. 50,000 years ago, I failed to break through to the Mahayana realm and was almost at the end of my lifespan. As such, I could only set up this astral dragon sputum lair and await the future generation." Everyone was confused. Since he was already dead, how did his consciousness manage to survive till now? The skeleton seemed to understand everyone's confusion and explained, "By making use of this tomb, my remnant consciousness fused into the dragon vein and concealed this heavenly secret. That was how I managed to remain here. Now that the dragon vein has been absorbed, I'm about to dissipate too." Everyone was enlightened. The skeleton continued, "The reason why I left this remnant consciousness was to prevent the Yellow Springs diagram from falling into the hands of outsiders. The final test of this tomb is me." Upon hearing that, everyone had conflicted expressions and felt trepidation. It was obvious what the skeleton was implying. If one of them in the group harbored evil intentions and designs on the Yellow Springs diagram, they would have been dead by now. Although it was only a remnant consciousness of a conjoint body mighty figure, it was strong enough to kill any of them present. Su Zimo's mouth twitched. The thoughts of this mighty figure of Tomb's sect could not be described simply as being cautious. It was more like he was twisted. Who would have expected that there would be a final test even after passing through all the various ones at the start? At the same time, it was the scariest and most fatal test. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he turned to Lin Xuanji at the side. There was no hint of surprise in Lin Xuanji's eyes, as though he had predicted this. Indeed. Su Zimo sneered internally, "What a crafty person." Back when they first entered, a thought crossed Su Zimo's mind when he saw that nothing in the palace seemed to have been touched. Could Lin Xuanji truly be so considerate? It was only at this moment that he finally understood. Lin Xuanji had expected this scene before them long ago. The skeleton turned and walked towards Su Zimo. "There are 4 distinct auras coming from you," the skeleton said slowly, "from the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects, as well as a demonic chi." "Yes." Su Zimo nodded. Naturally, the secrets in his body could not be hidden from a conjoint body mighty figure. "Good, good. Very good." The skeleton nodded repeatedly, seemingly pleased. The skeleton retrieved an ancient book from the stone shelf at the side and wiped away the dust on it before handing it to Su Zimo. "Take this book with you. If you can fulfill my wish, you will definitely bring about blessings for the masses." Su Zimo retrieved the ancient book and flipped it open gently. He merely took a quick glance before his expression changed. The ancient book recorded trial methods for how mortals should cultivate and form golden cores if they had no spirit roots. Of course, all of those methods ended in failure. However, there were a lot of thoughts and conclusions described behind the methods. When he witnessed Su Hong reach the end of his lifespan and the pitiful lives of the citizens of Yen country as their corpses sprawled everywhere, Su Zimo made a vow that he would create a Tao and alter the fates of the masses. For anyone else, this ancient book would be equivalent to trash. However, it was extremely important for Su Zimo. The failed attempts and methods were precious experiences left behind by their predecessors. It would save him a lot of time and effort. The skeleton said, "I've lived for more than 20,000 years and most of my time was spent on this. It's a pity that I did not manage to find a path further. If you have the heart to do so, I can only rely on you to continue down this path. If even someone like you can't do it, I'm afraid this is probably a dead end." Su Zimo was someone who cultivated the path of immortals, demons, fiends, and Buddhism. If even he could not create a path and establish a brand new Tao, there would probably be no one else in this world qualified to do so. Of course, given Su Zimo's current cultivation realm, experience, and knowledge, he was way too far from being able to establish a Tao. Su Zimo bowed deeply towards the skeleton and declared earnestly, "My sincere gratitude, Senior. This book is of utmost importance to me." "All right." The skeleton nodded and the light spot on its glabella had already grown faint. After pondering for a moment, it turned and pointed towards the electric pool at the back that flashed purple. "This is a purple electric pool and it can be used to refine one's body and weapons. There's an ancient manual in the middle of the electric pool and it's one of the cultivation techniques of the Void Thunder Manual, known as the Purple Thunder Manual. It's a heaven-grade cultivation technique and contains a myriad of techniques. Apart from mental arts, there's also dermic arts. Take it with you." Su Zimo was delighted when he heard that. Cultivation techniques had 4 grades: heaven, earth, dark and light. Ethereal Peak did not even have a dark grade cultivation technique or dermic art. Only aristocratic families and upper sects possessed dark grade cultivation techniques and dermic arts. Earth grade cultivation techniques and dermic arts were limited to super sects and they were not allowed to be imparted or leaked to outsiders. Although there were many cultivation techniques and dermic arts on the stone shelves, Su Zimo saw that they were mostly light grade. Even if there were any at dark grade, they were individual volumes and were incomplete. But now, there was a heaven grade cultivation technique right in front of Su Zimo. This was a divine opportunity. Furthermore, this was a section of the Void Thunder Manual. Su Zimo possessed the power of thunder within his body to begin with. As such, his cultivation process would be much easier. Now that everything was ready, Su Zimo only had to advance to nascent soul realm to be able to cultivate the Purple Thunder Manual. Lin Xuanji was green with envy once more. This must definitely be the effect of the dragon vein. Lin Xuanji was at the brink of tears and lamented internally, otherwise, this opportunity would have most likely been mine. The skeleton turned back and returned to the platform. It sat down slowly with a relieved expression. "I can finally leave in peace now. All of you are good, very good." With that, the light spot on the skeleton's glabella dimmed completely. After losing the support of a mighty figure's energy, the skeleton collapsed and turned into dust. Su Zimo sighed gently, looking emotional. Legend has it that the lifespan of a conjoint body mighty figure was more than 20,000 years. However, this mighty figure of Tomb's sect was able to display such godly abilities to extend its time in this world to 50,000 years and witness this scene today. It was only at this moment that his final trace of existence vanished from this world. Without a word, everyone bowed in unison deeply towards the mound of dust. It was a form of respect. At the same time, it was a final farewell. Chapter 697, Refining the Sword Formation. Chapter 697, Refining the Sword Formation. The purple electric pool crackled and flashed with an extremely terrifying aura. Su Zimo said, "This electric pool can be used to refine one's body. Those that can withstand it, will refine our bodies inside together. However, do take note that the power of thunder is the most dangerous. If you feel anything amiss, leave right away and don't push yourselves." "Heh, I was waiting for you to say that." Lin Xuanji gave an odd chuckle. He naturally wanted to obtain some compensation for the fact that he only captured 10% of the dragon vein for his trip here. The little fox hopped out of Su Zimo's embrace hurriedly and pouted her lips, shaking her head. Although demons were mostly strong physically, there were some exceptions. The fox race did not depend on their bodies for their cultivation. Su Zimo nodded and walked forward. This was something that could not be forced. In the mortal realm, there was the saying that one should never trespass an electric pool. To them, an electric pool represented danger and destructive power. Su Zimo entered the purple electric pool and shuddered. The electric pool shone brightly and flashed with a dazzling streak of lightning. One after another, purple lightning surged around Su Zimo before entering his body wildly. Su Zimo took a deep breath and advanced into the depths of the purple electric pool. Lin Xuanji rushed behind immediately after. The moment he entered, his eyes revealed a look of pain. However, he withstood it immediately after. The more pain one could endure within the electric pool, the stronger their bodies would be refined. The power in the outer perimeter of the electric pool was considered to be calm. The closer to the core, the wilder the power of thunder became. It rose with streaks of thunderbolt, as though it wanted to annihilate, drown and devour everything. One could only truly experience the meaning of the wrath of thunder in the center of the electric pool. Monkey, the spirit tiger, the golden lion and Qing Qing followed behind Lin Xuanji. The four of them belonged to demon races that placed emphasis on the strength of one's body. There was naturally no way they would miss an opportunity as such. Initially, Little Fatty and Shi Jian had no intention of entering. However, when they saw everyone rush in, including Lin Xuanji, it seemed as though the electric pool was nothing terrifying and they were both tempted. Should we linger for a moment at the outer perimeter of the electric pool? Shi Jian suggested. Yes. Little Fatty's eyes flickered as he said, I think that's fine. We shouldn't be in danger as long as we don't venture deep into the electric pool. Let's go. The two of them entered the electric pool. Ah. 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 The moment they entered, they shrieked. It was the worst for Shi Jian. His flesh was split, his hair stood on end and smoke rose from all his 7 orifices. To begin with, Puppet's sect was not bothered about body tempering. Before he was electrocuted unconscious, Shi Jian scurried out, looking extremely wretched with a blackened face. The little fox sniffed and said with confusion, strange, why is there the smell of delicious roasted meat? Shi Jian nearly spat blood when he heard that. Little Fatty was slightly better off than Shi Jian. After all, his body had just undergone a transformation due to the fog released by the Yellow Springs diagram. As such, it was not injured by the electricity. Even so, Little Fatty was in immense pain as his fat body twitched repeatedly. Isn't this just suffering for nothing? Little Fatty lamented internally, I'm having a good life eating good food, enjoying good sleep with a nice round body. Why should I be torturing myself like this? It did not take long for him to exit. Right now, there were only 6 people in the electric pool, Su Zimo, Lin Xuanji, Monkey, the spirit tiger, the golden lion and Qing Qing. Although they were all in the electric pool, their positions varied. The difference between the 6 of them was also clear. Su Zimo had arrived at the center of the electric pool and assumed a lotus position. The blood qi in his body surged as he absorbed the rampant power of thunder to refine his body. Unexpectedly, Lin Xuanji was the closest to the center of the electric pool. It was no wonder why he was this generation's successor to Enigma Palace. His methods were endless, his strength was unpredictable and even his physique was terrifying to such an extent. Monkey was slightly behind Lin Xuanji. Behind Monkey was the spirit tiger. In truth, the spirit tiger's bloodline was the most ordinary among all of them. Thankfully, he had cultivated the marrow cleansing section of the Void Thunder Manual and was able to swap blood through his marrow. By accident, he managed to absorb 4 claws of unknown origin into his body as well. The spirit tiger's physique was also transforming silently. After the spirit tiger was the golden lion and Qing Qing. The 6 of them found the limit which they can endure in the electric pool and sat down, taking in the power of thunder for their cultivation. A scroll made of beast skin hovered in the middle of the electric pool. Su Zimo reached out and retrieved the beast skin before unfolding it. At the top corner of the beast's skin, there were 3 words, Purple Thunder Manual. This was a section in the Void Thunder Manual which was crafted by the Thunder Emperor and was a heaven-grade cultivation technique. If one could cultivate a heaven-grade cultivation technique upon advancing to nascent soul realm, not only would they be able to cultivate at a terrifying speed, their essence spirits would also be much stronger than the essence spirits that were cultivated with light-grade cultivation techniques. It was the difference between heaven and earth. A powerful essence spirit meant that one would be able to manipulate more dermic powers and was stronger. Su Zimo took a quick glance before putting the Purple Thunder Manual carefully into his storage bag. This cultivation technique was going to be his strongest support for his immortality cultivation after he advanced to the nascent soul realm. At the same time, Su Zimo gained an immense curiosity towards the Een Spirit section of the Mystic Classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness. The Een Spirit section came after the Core Formation section and corresponded to the nascent soul realm of the Immortals. Without cultivating a Een Spirit, Su Zimo would not be able to see the cultivation techniques of the Een Spirit section. Su Zimo was certain that the Een Spirit section Dai Yu imparted to him was a heaven-grade cultivation technique. He did not know what was its limits. Furthermore, Dai Yu had imparted to him the Mystic Classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness. Up till this point, he could only manage to summon 7 Demon Kings with 5 more that had yet to appear. Su Zimo was looking forward to whether another Demon King would appear with the Een Spirit section. As he experienced the berserk power of thunder, a thought crossed his mind and he withdrew 27 supreme-grade flying swords from his storage bag. That was the set of flying swords required to form the Illumination Sword formation. Prior to this, the supreme-grade flying swords were tainted by the blood of powerful demon beasts and their powers would diminish after prolonged exposure. Su Zimo was also contemplating about how he could upgrade the set of flying swords. Now, with the help of the electric pool, he could truly refine the 27 flying swords once again. Although he could not raise their grades, he could boost their power by imbuing them with the power of thunder. The resultant impact would be even greater with 27 of them together. The increase in power of the Illumination Sword formation would be seen even clearer. Su Zimo waved his hand and the 27 flying swords scattered around him into the purple electric pool, shining with streaks of lightning on their blades. Everyone that entered the tomb had obtained opportunities for themselves respectively. At that moment, a group of cultivators arrived above the tomb. There were several thousands of them. Their leader was a scrawny man that resembled a bamboo pole. He stood in midair with a cold expression, glaring down as his eyes flickered. Chapter 698, 3 Major Sects. Chapter 698, 3 Major Sects. Fellow Taoist Lengming, this place where we're at is where the tomb is? A man behind the scrawny cultivator walked over. He had a haughty expression and a frightening aura as his eyes flashed with electric currents. A sect badge hung on his waist with the words Zephyr Thunder. The person who spoke was the legacy disciple of one of the 9 immortal sects, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Su Cheng. Su Cheng was also the leader of more than 1,000 Zephyr Thunder Palace disciples who had entered the ancient battlefield. The scrawny cultivator was the other legacy disciple of Tomb's sect this time round, Leng Ming. Leng Ming withdrew a geomantic compass and started calculating. A moment later, he nodded. There should be no mistake. This should be where the tomb is. He glared down coldly at the formation of the terrain beneath him. Gradually, a look of realization flashed in his eyes as he nodded. No wonder it's so secretive. It's the astral dragon sputum lair. Since we've located the tomb, let's head down, Su Cheng said. There's no need. Leng Ming shook his head. The dragon vein here has already dispersed, meaning that someone has arrived before us. There's no need for us to barge in. We can just wait outside to collect the rewards. That works too. Su Cheng nodded and surveyed his surroundings, raising his voice intentionally. The treasures in the tomb are secondary. There's a cultivation technique in there that I'm determined to get my hands on. Nobody shall fight me for it. The legendary Purple Thunder Manual, right? Another voice sounded behind the two of them. A man with a deathly aura arrived beside the two of them. The person was extremely ugly with a pale face and purplish lips. He resembled the malevolent ghosts in hell. Behind him was a towering giant that was a full 30 feet tall. The giant was draped tightly by a silver-white skin from head to toe such that even his nose and mouth were covered. Even so, a faint rotting stench could still be smelled emanating from the giant. The ugly man was the legacy disciple of corpse refinement cult this time round, Situ. The giant behind him was his battle corpse. Situ said, "Do you think that I don't know?" In the cultivation techniques passed down in Zephyr Thunder Palace, the reason why many powerful dermic arts aren't able to be unleashed is because you guys lack the Purple Thunder Manual. Su Cheng's eyes flashed with a hint of disdain as he said indifferently, "I'm sure you're not here solely for revenge, huh, Brother Situ? That cultivator of puppet sect murdered disciples of corpse refinement cult. I definitely have to get my hands on him." Situ remarked coldly, "I also want a share of the treasures in this tomb as well. Fellow Daoist Leng Ming, I'm here with hundreds of disciples from my sect to assist you. Naturally, you have to give me my share of the treasures in the tomb as well." Another cultivator draped in white robes stood out, looking graceful and extraordinary. He was the legacy disciple of another of the 9 immortal sects, Chaos Essence Sect, Nye Hao. The leader of the Chaos Essence Sect disciples this time round was the top of the Golden Core phenomenon ranking who was publicly acknowledged as the #1 Golden Core, Di. Naturally, against the reputation of Di, it was easy to overlook Nye Hao. However, in reality, Nye Hao was extremely strong and had cultivated the legacy phenomenon of Chaos Essence Sect. If not for a monster incarnate like Di, he would have been the leader of the Chaos Essence Sect disciples. Leng Ming smiled faintly. "Everyone, don't worry. I only wish to retrieve the legacy utmost treasure of Tomb Sect. You guys can split the remaining treasures among your disciples." He surveyed the ground and smiled indifferently with extreme confidence, as though he could peer through all the obstacles. In order to prevent any accidents, he sought help from 2 major immortal sects, Zephyr Thunder Palace and Chaos Essence Sect. Along the way, Corpse Refinement Cult of the 5 heretical doctrines joined them. With the backing of the 3 super sects, Leng Ming was confident that the Yellow Springs diagram was definitely his. "My dear junior brother, I heard that you found some helpers for yourself too. Let's see what sort of people you've sought help from, Fufufu." Within the tomb, Lin Xuanji, Monkey, the Spirit Tiger, the Golden Lion and Qing Qing left the electric pool one after another. Su Zimo was the final one to leave. In part, it was because his physique could withstand the refinement of thunder for a longer duration. At the same time, he was refining the sword formation. Right now, he had already completed the sword formation. Although the 27 flying swords were still at supreme grade, each of them had streaks of purple lightning coiling them. Aside from the sharpness of the blade itself, there was now the tough and righteous power of thunder that could suppress evil. Su Zimo furrowed his brows gently. "Fatty, put away the treasures of this place. Let's leave as soon as possible. I've got a feeling that something is amiss." "Yes." Little Fatty nodded. It was way too strange that his senior brother, Leng Ming, had yet to show himself. Furthermore, they had spent a long time in this tomb. Other things might happen if they continued staying here. Little Fatty walked along the stone shelves and stuffed all the other treasures into his storage bag. Apart from some of them that he would use for himself, he would hand the rest over to the sect. It would be a huge merit on his part. With that merit and the acknowledgement of the Yellow Springs diagram, Little Fatty's status in the sect would definitely surpass Leng Ming, although he had joined later. "Let's leave." Little Fatty waved his hand after wiping the treasures clean, and everyone returned from where they came from. Unlike when they entered, the group of them did not encounter any obstacles on the way out. Even the ancient frost crocodiles and bloodthirsty silverfishes seemed to be hiding themselves. Everyone entered the lake and rose continuously. When they were dozens of feet from the surface, Su Zimo's eyes flashed as he whispered, "Everyone, watch out. There's a lot of people up there." Fufu, the oriole stalks the mantis as it stalks the grasshopper. Lin Xuanji chuckled. Fatty, that senior brother of yours has already arrived. He looked extremely relaxed. Su Zimo sneered, it isn't easy being an oriole. Swoosh. Before long, splashes appeared on the lake as Su Zimo's group rushed out and hovered in midair. They were surrounded by several thousand murderous cultivators, and all of them had endless greed in their eyes. 4 cultivators stood in 4 directions and looked down with a torrential aura. They were none other than Leng Ming of Tomb Sect, Su Cheng of Zephyr Thunder Palace, Sidu Shi of Corpse Refinement Cult, and Nia Hao of Chaos Essence Sect. Senior brother, you've come indeed. Little Fatty glared at a scrawny cultivator and grit his teeth. Fufu. Leng Ming smiled faintly. Junior brother, I truly hadn't expected you to arrive here a step before me, but... He changed the topic and retracted his smile, shaking his head. Everything you've done is for naught and merely to set things up for me. You're too naive to fight with me. Senior brother, the sect master said that whoever gets their hands on the Yellow Springs diagram wins. You've already lost the fight. Little Fatty said deeply. A series of exclamations broke out in the crowd at the mention of the Yellow Springs diagram. That renowned emperor weapon had been with the Underworld Emperor for many years. Although its grade had fallen, it was still a rare utmost treasure. Even Su Cheng, Situ Shi, and Nia Hao's eyes flashed with temptation. How naive. Leng Ming shook his head with a mocking gaze. Junior brother, you're still naive as ever. Before you refine it to become your destiny dermic weapon, the Yellow Springs diagram belongs to no one still. I can naturally snatch it away from you. Chapter 699, Nobodies. Chapter 699, Nobodies. The commotion here was rather great, and many cultivators in the vicinity were already rushing over. Situ Shi frowned slightly and said with a deep voice, let's settle this as soon as possible lest outsiders get to be the oriole. Leng Ming nodded and glared at Little Fatty with a cold gaze before saying slowly, Junior brother, don't blame me for not taking into account our relationship as sect mates. I'll give you 2 options to choose. The first option is to hand over the Yellow Springs diagram alongside all the treasures in the tomb. I will then spare your life. The second option. There's no need to say anything more. Leng Ming was interrupted by Little Fatty before he could finish. Little Fatty gripped his fists tightly and snarled word for word, I'll never hand the Yellow Springs diagram to you. He went through immense danger and found it with his own capabilities. Why should he hand it over to Leng Ming? Well. Leng Ming nodded with an endless killing intent in his eyes. You chose this, so don't blame me for not giving you any chances. Little Fatty withdrew a flying sword from his storage bag with a resolute expression without any bit of fear. Leng Ming glanced briefly at Su Zimo and the others with a mocking gaze before jeering, Junior brother, I've got to say that you've truly grown. To think that you would know how to seek help, that's impressive. However, these few people and some beasts are your backing? When they heard the word beasts, Monkey and the others revealed wrathful looks. The spirit tiger was murderous as he glared at Leng Ming fiercely before chuckling. Bamboo pole, you had better run away later. Otherwise, if I get my hands on you, ha ha ha. Leng Ming chuckled. Junior brother, you can't be naive enough to think that you can fight me with these nobodies? Nobodies? Little Fatty laughed as well. There were a total of 9 of them. Apart from Monkey, the spirit tiger, Ching Ching, the little fox and the golden lion who were demons, which of the remaining 4 were nobodies? He was a legacy disciple of Tomb Sect. Shi Jian was a legacy disciple of Puppet Sect. Lin Xuanji was their generation successor of Enigma Palace. Although Su Zimo had no sect or faction currently, there was probably nobody in the ancient battlefield who would dare claim that he was a nobody. Everything else aside, the name Su Zimo was enough to scare people to death. What, you don't believe me? Leng Ming burst into laughter. Since that's the case, let me introduce to you these few true paragons of Tianhuang mainland so that you'll understand how you die at least. This is the legacy disciple of corpse refinement cult, Situ Shi. Situ Shi had a cold gaze and glared at Shi Jian as though he was looking at a dead man. Shi Jian said softly, "Leave that man to me." Lin Xuanji whispered, "Although that man has no golden core phenomenon, he is not weak." The 30-foot-tall battle corpse behind him is already showing signs of evolution into a silver corpse. The battle corpses of corpse refinement cult were differentiated by levels. A corpse was the lowest level and was extremely weak. They could be destroyed easily with weapons, fire and water. Iron and bronze corpses came after. Normally, golden cores of corpse refinement cult were able to control bronze corpses. Above bronze corpses were silver corpses. Leng Ming pointed to another person and smiled leisurely. "This fellow Daoist is Nie Hao from one of the 9 immortal sects, Chaos Essence Sect." Chaos Essence Sect? Su Zimo murmured, and a figure that resembled an emperor flashed through his mind. Dean of Chaos Essence Sect. That person was truly frightening and was the strongest foe Su Zimo had encountered by far. Lin Xuanji remarked nonchalantly, "He is Di Yin's junior brother. The only reason why he's not so well known is because of Di Yin's reputation, but he does have some skills." Su Zimo did not have much knowledge about the paragons of the various super sects, but Lin Xuanji knew everything at the back of his hand. Su Zimo turned to Lin Xuanji. "We'll leave that guy to you since you seem so nonchalant." "It's fine." Lin Xuanji waved it off and pouted. "I'm not together with you guys. Most of the benefits within the tomb were taken by you guys and I only got a fraction of it." "Mr. Lin, are you thinking of running away?" The little fox wanted to agitate Lin Xuanji psychologically, but he did not fall for it. Without even blushing, Lin Xuanji said sincerely, "A gentleman knows that he should not stand in the face of danger. Don't worry, once the battle starts, I'll definitely be the first to run and not create trouble for you guys. This is Su Cheng, the number 1 golden core of one of the 9 immortal sects, Zephyr Thunder Palace." Leng Ming's voice sounded once more as he left Su Cheng's introduction for the last. Cultivators that were watching nearby exclaimed at the mention of that name. Lin Xuanji displayed a rare moment of seriousness and said deeply, "He is extremely strong." It said that he cultivated the strongest legacy phenomenon of Zephyr Thunder Palace, the Apocalyptic 5 Thunders. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. In the previous Golden Core phenomenon ranking, a successor of Zephyr Thunder Palace was ranked 9 and his phenomenon was the 4 Thunderbolts. Behind that Golden Core phenomenon, it was clearly stated that the highest level of the Golden Core phenomenon was to create 5 Divine Thunderbolts that had an apocalyptic might. For Divine Thunderbolts were enough for one to be ranked top 10 in the phenomenon ranking. How strong was this person in combat if he could summon 5 Divine Thunderbolts? Lin Xuanji continued, "This person is strong enough to be top 5 or even top 3 in the phenomenon ranking. The reason why he's here this time round is so that he can challenge Diin." Su Zimo nodded. Lin Xuanji reminded, "Don't underestimate your opponents. Although you have a double phenomenon, they might not be able to go against the 5 Divine Thunderbolts released by this guy." Su Zimo frowned. Up to this point of his cultivation, he had not encountered anyone who could challenge his double phenomenon. At the most, they could only enter a stalemate with one of his phenomenons. Once his second phenomenon appeared, his opponents would definitely be defeated without chance. To think that he would meet such a savage character before arriving at Myriad Phenomenon City. Leng Ming looked at little Fatty with a fake smile. "How about introducing your helpers so that we can broaden our knowledge too?" A series of chuckles sounded from the Chaos Essence Sect, Corpse Refinement Cult and Zephyr Thunder Palace crowd. Situ Shi and Nie Hao had haughty expressions. Su Cheng's hands were behind his back as he looked up in the skies. He could not even be bothered to look at Su Zimo's group. Given the current situation, everything would be resolved before he was even required to make a move. They knew most of the paragons of the various super sections. In their opponent's group, apart from Little Fatty and Shi Jian who were from super sects, the remaining 2 looked extremely foreign. They were either itinerant cultivators or disciples of minor sects who were just here to join the crowd and broaden their knowledge. Before he left the tomb, Lin Xuanji already wore his mask. As such, it was only natural that Situ Shi and the others could not recognize him. Little Fatty harumphed before pointing to Lin Xuanji. This is... Lin Xuanji waved it off hurriedly and grinned brightly. There's no need to introduce me, I'm just a nobody who will be leaving soon. You guys can carry on fighting, it's none of my business. Ha 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 ha. The cultivators present burst into laughter. Leng Ming held back his amusement and pointed to the green-robed cultivator beside Lin Xuanji with disdain in his eyes. Who is that? Hurry and introduce him so that we can learn more too, junior brother. Just as little Fatty was about to speak, the green-robed cultivator said with indifference, My name is Su Zimo. Suddenly, the laughter in the crowd went silent. It was as though all the cultivators present were choked by the throat. Chapter 700, Tension. Chapter 700, Tension. After a momentary silence, the crowd broke into an uproar. Cultivators who were watching from nearby exclaimed as well. Pust! It's him. Su Zimo. The monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island? I heard that he triggered a beast stampede previously and decimated an ancient city of Glass Palace in the ancient battlefield. Glass Palace was annihilated and only a few cultivators managed to escape. Ah. My name is Su Zimo. He said it casually. There was no overbearingness or arrogance in his tone. However, it shocked everyone present. The name Su Zimo alone had the greatest impact. At the very least, in the intermediate ancient battlefield, that name was scarier than any super sect. The expressions of corpse refinement, cult Situ Shi and chaos essence Sects Niahao changed slightly upon hearing that name as well. Their pupils constricted and they had grim looks on their faces. Leng Ming frowned deeply with a cold gaze too. If Su Zimo was a nobody, everyone else would be trash. Even Su Cheng of Zephyr Thunder Palace, who was gazing into the skies indifferently previously, looked down, glaring at Su Zimo with a narrowed gaze as his eyes flashed with electric currents. Su Zimo. Double phenomenon? A curious look filled Su Cheng's eyes. Initially, little Fatty's group of 9 looked weak, surrounded by thousands of cultivators, as though they could be drowned to death at any moment. However, after Su Zimo spoke, the aura around them rose to a point where they could contend against the thousands of cultivators and the 3 super sects without being disadvantaged. In the ancient battlefield, Su Zimo's infamy was second only to Di'in. Senior brother, you sure are arrogant. This is the nobody that you were referring to. When he saw the tides shift, little Fatty relaxed and said with a grin. Leng Ming had a grim expression as he ignored little Fatty and turned to Su Zimo. He greeted with cupped fists before saying darkly, Fellow Daoist Su, I've heard of your reputation a long time ago. Indeed, your reputation precedes you now that we're meeting in real life. Su Zimo had an indifferent expression and could not be bothered. Although killing intent surged within Leng Ming, he chuckled in a fake manner before saying, Fellow Daoist Su, this is a fight between disciples of Tomb Sect. As long as you're willing to stand by the sidelines and not interfere, I will definitely compensate you for it. Oh. Su Zimo raised his brow. I want the Yellow Springs diagram. Are you going to give it to me? Ha 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 ha. This time round, little Fatty's group was the one that burst into laughter. Leng Ming took a deep breath to repress the rage in his heart as he controlled himself with another fake chuckle. You must be joking, fellow Daoist. The Yellow Springs diagram is the utmost treasure of Tomb Sect, so I can't give that to you. Other than that, you can have your pick from any treasure in the tomb. That won't do. Before Su Zimo could speak, Su Cheng stood out from the side and interrupted coldly. The Purple Thunder manual in the tomb belongs to me. Su Zimo remained silent. Zephyr Thunder Palace possesses part of the Thunder Emperor's legacy. Of course, Zephyr Thunder Palace was not founded by the Thunder Emperor, but his disciple. The Purple Thunder Manual is the part of the cultivation technique that Zephyr Thunder Palace lacks. Lin Xuanji used a secret technique to transmit his voice into Su Zimo's mind. Su Zimo nodded. Su Cheng looked at Su Zimo's group before making a sudden remark. Whoever has their hands on the cultivation technique, as long as you hand it over, I can back out of this fight. Brother Su, you. Leng Ming's expression changed, but he was interrupted by Su Cheng's hand just as he was about to speak. Su Cheng said indifferently, I only want the Purple Thunder Manual. I'm not interested in anything else. No matter how scheming Leng Ming was, he could not conceal his emotions at the moment. Little Fatty sneered, so, that's how deep your connections are, senior brother. Indeed, I've learned something today. Impressive, impressive. Is nobody going to hand over the Purple Thunder Manual? When no one replied after a moment, Su Cheng's eyes crackled with electric currents and his killing intent surged. He said coldly, if no one hands it over, I'll have to assume that someone is trying to keep a lost cultivation technique of Zephyr Thunder Palace for themselves insolently. The Purple Thunder Manual is with me. If you want to get it. Su Zimo said nonchalantly, come then. Although those were two simple words, it caused the blood of the cultivators watching nearby to surge with excitement. They're going at it. If these two paragons fight, there will definitely be an earth-shaking battle. Could this be the prelude to the fight for the phenomenon ranking? Leng Ming was delighted at the sight of that. Things had truly worked out for him. If someone gave in and handed the Purple Thunder Manual over, nobody could determine the victor of the current situation. But now, Su Cheng had no choice but to stand by his side. Now that it was known to everyone that the Purple Thunder Manual was in Su Zimo's hands, Su Cheng had no reason to back off and could only fight. Well. Su Cheng nodded repeatedly and glared at Su Zimo with a raring battle intent. His aura rose continuously as he said slowly, I was intending on sparing you for now and only fight after we arrived at Myriad Phenomenon City. But since you have a death wish, you can't blame me for this. The tension was high and they were on the cusp of a massive battle just because of a single disagreement. Oh my. A playful voice sounded from the crowd. Since it's so happening here, let me join in the fun. When the voice sounded, cultivators of Corpse Refinement Cult, Chaos Essence Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace retreated hurriedly to create a path. It was as though they had seen the plague. A group of cultivators walked over briskly. The cultivators wore dark blue robes and their leader had his hands behind his back. He had a nonchalant attitude and walked over, licking his grisly red tongue. It was one of the 5 heretical doctrines, Poison Sect. In Poison Sect, every single cultivator carried a myriad of toxic poisons in their bodies and anyone that came into contact with any single poison could lose their lives. The 7 lethals of Poison Sect was even more notorious. It did not matter what one's cultivation realm was, they would most likely die upon contact with the 7 lethals. Although there were only slightly more than 100 Poison Sect cultivators, it was enough to send chaos through the Corpse Refinement Cult, Chaos Essence Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace cultivators, causing the latter to retreat. Su Cheng looked at the young man leading the pack and frowned slightly. Du Ren, whose side are you on? Lin Xuanji seemed to have recalled something and whispered to Su Zimo with a gloating expression, I guess that they're here to take revenge on you. Su Zimo was not surprised. 20 years ago in the elementary ancient battlefield, Xiaoning was poisoned and nearly lost her life. In his wrath, Su Zimo annihilated the Poison Sect faction in the ancient battlefield. Du Ren rubbed his chin and asked despite the obvious situation, fellow Daoist Leng Ming, I heard that you guys are in trouble? Indeed, Leng Ming was not bothered to guess Du Ren's intentions. Du Ren laughed. I can help you out, but I want a share of the treasures in the tomb. All right. Leng Ming was delighted and replied hurriedly, that's for sure. As long as you're on my side, you'll definitely have a share of the treasures in the tomb. Du Ren turned to Su Zimo slowly and jeered with a venomous glare. Su Zimo, do you remember a Poison Sect cultivator named Du Kai whom you killed in the ancient battlefield 20 years ago? I'm his older brother and today, I'm here to claim your life. Du Ren's smile was unsettling, resembling a malevolent ghost from hell. Su Zimo had a calm expression as he withdrew Blood Quencher from his storage bag before nodding. You came at the right time. I'll kill you guys together. The Eternal Divine Emperor. Chapter 701, Great Battle. Chapter 701, Great Battle. In my opinion, Su Zimo's group is most probably doomed. That's right, even without Poison Sect, it was the 9 of them against a few thousand people. That's an overwhelming suppression in strength. With the inclusion of Poison Sect now, they've got no chance at all. That's not for sure. Another cultivator remarked. Glass Palace had dozens of thousands of cultivators in the ancient city, but they were still destroyed nevertheless. It's different now. I heard that Su Zimo had the help of the Beast Stampede previously. Furthermore, Su Qing of Zephyr Thunder Palace alone is enough to hold down Su Zimo while the rest of them are of no threat at all. The cultivators watching from far away started discussing in hushed voices. With the inclusion of Poison Sect, Ling Ming was certain that he had already won this fight. Corpse Refinement Cult Situ Shur could go against Puppet Sects Shijian. Chaos Essence Sects Nia Hao could easily take down the grey-robed cultivator with the Iron Ruler who claimed that he was a nobody. As for the most troublesome person on the other party, Su Zimo, Zephyr Thunder Palace's Su Cheng and Poison Sect's Du Ren were enough to take him down. Finally, there's his junior brother. Ling Ming smirked. Little Fatty was indeed more talented than him in terms of sense of direction. However, he was firmly above Little Fatty in terms of strength. As for the remaining few beasts, they would be drowned by saliva if the several thousand golden cores around them spat once per person. The Yellow Springs diagram was already his. Roar. Groar. When Su Zimo withdrew Blood Quencher, Monkey, the Spirit Tiger, Qing Qing and the Golden Lion reverted to their true forms, revealing menacing glares and torrential ferocity. The surrounding cultivators were shocked and brought out their flying swords and weapons as though they were faced with a grave enemy. They felt an unprecedented pressure from the few demon beasts. It was a pressure that they had not experienced even against pure-blooded ferocious beasts. Little Fox hopped out of Su Zimo's embrace and spun on the ground. A fragrance wafted out as a young lady with peerless features appeared. Her beautiful eyes shimmered brightly as though they could steal one's soul. Some of the cultivators had barely just withdrawn their weapons when everything fell to the ground with a clang. Of the several thousand cultivators present, most of them were dazed momentarily. Su Cheng, Nia Hao and a dozen others were the only ones who could maintain their composure with frozen expressions. Although Little Fox seemed like she was the weakest among the 7 sworn siblings, in reality, her capabilities were the most frightening and beguiling. Demoness, how dare you behave so brazenly before me? Su Cheng hollered. His voice was robust and strong, bursting in the ears of many cultivators like thunder, snapping them out of their stupor. This was a sound-killing move from Zephyr Thunder Palace, Green Thunder Shock. Previously, Su Zimo saw an incomplete sound-killing move in the Void Thunder manual and used it as a basis to create his own killing move, Thunderclap Kill. The complete version of the killing move was Green Thunder Shock that Su Cheng had just released. Monkey and the others were strong physically and had frightening bloodlines. As such, they could withstand Green Thunder Shock more easily and merely frowned. However, Little Fox shuddered and her face turned somewhat pale. How irritating. Su Zimo sneered and Blood Quencher quivered in his hands with a metallic buzz. Spirit light shone brightly and a blood beam burst. The saber let out a shuddering blood stench. Boom! Su Zimo leaped and the mud beneath his feet was overturned. Wielding Blood Quencher, he was already charging toward Su Cheng. Good timing. Su Cheng was fearless and swiped his storage bag, causing a saber to appear in his palm as well. The saber was 9 feet long and 5 inches wide, comparable to a spear or halberd in length. Its blade was veiled by a green layer of electric currents that sizzled unervingly. I heard that your Blood Quencher is a connate spirit weapon. Su Qing said coldly, "Today, we'll see just how sharp your blood quencher is against my green thunder saber." Before his sentence was completed, the green thunder saber shone brightly with 6 spirit lights. A Khanate spirit weapon. Within the Great Zhou dynasty, there wasn't even a single Khanate spirit weapon. However, all of these legacy disciples of super sects would definitely have Khanate spirit weapons with them. Suddenly, Du Ren's voice sounded erratically. "Su Qing, this man's body is incomparably strong and he is terrifying, almost invincible in melee combat. You've got to be careful." Du Ren shifted nimbly like a maggot behind Su Zimo. He did not attack and was merely awaiting an opportunity patiently. Someone like that was even scarier. It was like a venomous viper that was hidden, a single bite could take one's life away. On the other side, Sitishir glared at Shi Jian coldly. With a gentle wave of his hand, the 30-feet-tall giant behind him charged forward. Roar! The giant roared into the skies and the skin that draped its body tore into pieces, revealing an iron frame that reeked of a nauseating stench. The battle corpse was bronze in color from head to toe. However, there was a layer of thin white fur that grew on it. At the sight of that, Shi Jian's pupils constricted and his expression turned grim. The battle corpse was already starting to evolve into a silver corpse. Silver corpses were terrifying things that could fight against nascent souls. Shi Jian slapped his storage bag and withdrew the 5 puppets that he cultivated. He condensed qi into threads to control the puppets and surround Sitishir's battle corpse. Compared to Sitishir's battle corpse, Shi Jian's puppets were extremely short. However, the puppets contained the power of the 5 elements and formed a formation with their movements, counteracting against one another and restricting the battle corpse to the spot. The 2 successors of corpse refinement cult and puppet sect had now met earlier than expected in the ancient battlefield. It was difficult to tell who would stand victorious in this fight. The great battle had broken out completely. In a flash, Lin Xuanji fled into the distance like smoke, trying to seize the chaos to escape. Unexpectedly, a silver-white beam of light shot down with an extremely sharp and chilling aura that almost sliced the voids into 2. Lin Xuanji stopped in his tracks hurriedly. Boom! A gigantic ravine tore the ground asunder the moment the silver-white light descended. If Lin Xuanji had taken a half-step more, he would have been decimated by the silver-white light. Fuck! Lin Xuanji turned back and glared in a huff. Not far away, Niehao of Chaos Essence Sect had a mocking expression and held a horsetail whip in his hand. Its silver-white tail had just been retracted and was still swaying. "You're thinking of escaping from my watch?" Niehao sneered. Although Lin Xuanji cursed internally, he squeezed out a smile on his face. "Fellow Daoist, I'm just a nobody who isn't in cahoots with them. Why are you trying to kill me?" Enigma Palace maintained the Golden Core phenomenon ranking in the ancient battlefield. As the current generation's successor to Enigma Palace, it was inappropriate for him to sow grudges with other paragons. That was also the reason why he wore a mask and hid his identity. "What can you do if I want to kill you?" Ha ha ha. Niehao burst into laughter with a mocking look in his eyes. Lin Xuanji frowned. The reason why he endured things was not because he was afraid of Niehao, he was afraid of being scolded by his elder if he returned after causing trouble. "Hey, let me tell you something." Lin Xuanji's face darkened as he said with extreme seriousness. "It's truly better if you don't mess with me." Chapter 702, I'll bash you up if you mess with me. Chapter 702, I'll bash you up if you mess with me. What? Niehao could not believe what he heard and glared at Lin Xuanji as though he was looking at a dead man, snarling word by word, "I want to mess with you, what can you do? I'll bash you up if you mess with me." Lin Xuanji leaped into the air towards Niehao. "You must have a death wish." Niehao was enraged and the horsetail whip in his hands shone with a dazzling luster. 6 spirit patterns, a Khanate spirit weapon. Although he was undermined by Di Yin's reputation, Niehao was still in possession of a Khanate spirit weapon. It was obvious that his status in Chaos Essence sect as a golden core was not weak, he was only beneath Diin. Swash. Niahao waved the horsetail whip in his hands and 3,000 silver-white threads turned into a spectacular beam of white light, slicing towards Lin Xuanji's waist like a sword. The light was blinding and traveled at an extremely fast speed, it was almost instantaneous. Lin Xuanji's expression did not change, as though he had predicted it beforehand, and he dodged downwards, avoiding Niahao's killing move by a hair's breadth. Swoosh. 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 He swung his arm in reverse and 3 supreme-grade flying swords tore through the air. The 3 flying swords split into 3 different directions and thrust towards Niahao's vital points with unusual movements. His sword maneuvering technique was already rather advanced. At the same time, Lin Xuanji made a series of complex and mysterious hand seals. Heaven dominating palm. Root departure finger. Frost palm. Cloud stirring palm. Zen chi explosion. Trigreen phantom saber. Icicle formation. After a series of confusing hand seals, Lin Xuanji burst forth with 18 spirit arts that surged towards Niahao like raging tides. Shocking. That was the only word in everyone's minds when they saw it. This. Amazing. What's the background of this man? There's spirit arts from different sects among the 18 of them. I can't tell where he's from. An uproar broke out from the crowd. In order to conceal his identity, there was naturally no way Lin Xuanji would release Enigma Palace's ultimate secret skills. However, he had vast knowledge and knew a little about everything. A simple attack from him could suffocate his opponents. Even Su Zimo could not grasp Lin Xuanji's true strength, let alone Niahao. Fuck. Niahao was scared out of his wits and cursed internally. This guy's playing cheat. How was this a nobody? He waved the horsetail whip in his hands and the 3,000 strands of hair split into 3 directions to receive the incoming flying swords. The next moment, Niahao circulated his golden core wildly and released a secret skill of his sect, Chaos Essence Palm. Huff. 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 Niahao was flustered and released Chaos Essence Palm repeatedly. A series of palm prints materialized in midair and clashed against the 18 incoming spirit arts. Bang. 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 The collisions created deafening bangs and shockwaves. Niahao stood in the air with a frightfully pale expression, he was almost sent flying. He had expended almost half the spirit energy in his dantian with the successive release of his secret skill. What a lunatic. Niahao cursed and withdrew a few elixirs from his storage bag, ready to consume them to replenish his spirit energy. Let go. All of a sudden. A voice exploded in Niahao's ears, almost scaring him out of his wits. Unknowingly, Lin Xuanji had already arrived beside him, tapping him gently on the wrist that held the elixirs with an iron ruler. Ah! Niahao shrieked tragically and his wrist swelled instantly, causing him to relinquish his grip on the elixirs. How dare you attack me? Niahao's eyes were bloodshot as he clenched his teeth. He wished for nothing more than to tear Lin Xuanji apart. In reality, Lin Xuanji had already shown mercy with that attack. If he had attacked with his full force, Niahao's hand would have already been crippled. In other words, that iron ruler could have been tapped on Niahao's head rather than his wrist. As long as he pondered calmly, Niahao would definitely be able to understand. However, he could not care less at that moment. The only thought on his mind was how to kill Lin Xuanji so that he could regain his dignity. I've already told you not to mess with me, but you refuse to heed my advice. Lin Xuanji pouted his lips and murmured, "Is there something wrong with your brains? You really believed me when I said that I was a nobody? What an idiot. Have you gone stupid after receiving daily beatings from Diin? Kill." Niahao was so angry that he was trembling with smoke steaming from all orifices. The horsetail whip in his hands quivered and all 3,000 strands of hair burst into the air before scattering down like a waterfall. It resembled a jail as it tried to envelope Lin Xuanji. Fufu. Lin Xuanji's eyes shone with mockery. In a flash, he had already darted far away. He declared with a raised voice, "Hey, don't blame me for not reminding you. If you mess with me, I'll bash you up." Ha 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 ha. Far away, a series of laughter broke out from the crowd. Miao's face flushed red and he almost exploded from rage. Unable to contain himself any longer, he cursed, "I'll bash your mother." As he said that, Miao dashed forward once more. On the other side, Leng Ming and Little Fatty, the legacy disciples of Tomb's sect, had collided as well. This was an inevitable battle. The victor would be this generation's true successor of Tomb's sect. "Junior brother, admit defeat." Leng Ming shook his head. "You've joined the sect for 20 years and have fought me for 20 times. When have you ever defeated me? It's enough as long as I defeat you this time round." Little Fatty said darkly. Leng Ming's gaze turned cold as he remarked frostily, "Junior brother, if you hand over the Yellow Springs diagram, I can consider sparing your life. If you insist on your folly, don't blame me for being ruthless. You're the one insisting on your folly, not me." Little Fatty withdrew a flying sword from his storage bag. "There's no need to speak further, let's fight." "All right." Little Fatty bellowed and summoned his flying sword as well, fighting to the side with Little Fatty. Before the remaining thousands of cultivators could attack, Monkey, the Spirit Tiger, the Golden Lion and Ching Ching had already rushed into the crowd and brought forth a massacre. Their opponents had the advantage in numbers. If they waited, a single flying sword from each opponent would be enough to injure Monkey's group. Right now, they split into 4 groups and charged into the crowd, slaughtering wildly and causing chaos. The cultivators could only fight for themselves. Little Fox stood motionlessly on the spot and released her bewitching techniques from the fox race. She opened her mouth slightly and sent forth a fragrance that charmed dozens of cultivators before long, causing them to fight their comrades. Clang! A jarring sound of metal clashing rang, causing the ears of cultivators nearby to ring in pain as they winced. It was Su Zimo clashing against Su Cheng. The collision of Blood Quencher and the Green Thunder Saber. Sizzle! The blood beam and lightning, 2 entirely different powers, interweaved in midair and devoured one another. The stalemate lasted for a single breath. Su Cheng shuddered and his expression changed as he fell to the side. Zephyr Thunder Palace specialized in thunder techniques and there were many body tempering methods in the Legacy of Void Thunder manual as well. Although they could not compare to top-tier body tempering sects such as Glass Palace and Overlord Palace, their melee combat strength was not to be underestimated as well. However, Su Cheng had not expected that he couldn't withstand a single slash from Su Zimo. He could not defend even though Su Zimo did not use his full strength. The power of thunder imbued on the Green Thunder Saber surged into Su Zimo's body as though it was treading through a swamp and did not even cause a single ripple. However, the power of bloodline from Blood Quencher surged into Su Cheng's and caused his blood chi to turn chaotic. He was nearly ruptured on the spot from the reverse flow of his blood. Chapter 703, Immovable Foundation Seal. Chapter 703, Immovable Foundation Seal. Su Cheng retreated backwards as his eyes flashed with a grim expression. Although it was merely a single exchange of blows, his arms had already gone numb and his blood chi was fluctuating wildly. However, Su Zimo wielded Blood Quencher and charged over as though he was completely unaffected. "I can't fight him head-on anymore." Su Cheng made up his mind decisively and gripped his Green Thunder Saber with one hand. His other hand conjured a hand seal before eventually releasing a spirit art that burst forth immediately. "Zephyr Thunder Break." Su Cheng hollered. A wild wind gusted and fluttered towards Su Zimo. Sand was already flying everywhere before it arrived. In the wild wind, there was even a sizzling green lightning that looked extremely horrifying. Su Cheng also released the sound secret killing move of Zephyr Thunder Palace through his voice. His voice materialized into sound waves that surged towards Su Zimo, causing the entire void to quake. The combination of his spirit art and sound's secret killing move arrived at the same time. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as he put away Blood Quencher and clasped his palms together. His fingers interlocked into a grip, leaving only his forefingers upright as their fingertips touched. When he released that dermic seal, Su Zimo's aura changed entirely. A divine light covered his body. Lowering his head, Su Zimo ignored the wild gust coiled with lightning. In fact, he looked extremely dignified as he opened his mouth slightly without even looking at Su Cheng, Pa. The entire world went silent with that Sanskrit exclamation. There were 6 different Daming dermic seals. This was the only defensive dermic seal among them, the Immovable Foundation seal. Daming Mantra. It was released together with the Daming dermic seal. This was a secret technique in the Daming True Sutra. However, this secret skill had been buried in the sands of time, lost with Daming True Sutra after the destruction of Daming Monastery. Nobody expected that secret skill to resurface in the ancient battlefield. Lin Xuanji was initially glaring at Nie Hao while bashing the latter up. When he heard that Sanskrit exclamation, he was surprised and turned towards the voice. That is. As though he recalled something, Lin Xuanji's expression changed as he exclaimed, the Immovable Foundation seal from Daming Monastery. Nie Hao was bruised from head to toe and had a swollen face. Flustered, he finally managed to catch a breath with Lin Xuanji's pause. However, when he heard the words Daming Monastery and Immovable Foundation seal, his eyes were filled with disbelief. 10,000 years ago, Daming Monastery was destroyed. Although none of the legacy disciples from super sects had witnessed the true Daming dermic seal, all of them had heard of the famous Daming Monastery. Throughout all these years, countless cultivators have risked danger to head to the Great Xian ruins in hopes of locating the secret skills of Daming and Fahua monasteries. The Sanskrit rang throughout the world. Almost instantly, Su Cheng's sound-killing move dissipated. Against the divine light from the Immovable Foundation seal, the raging winds and shining lightning around Su Zimo dispersed as well. Su Cheng's eyes shone coldly. He had not expected his attack to be swept away by Su Zimo with such ease. All of a sudden, Duren appeared behind Su Zimo, throwing out a bunch of blue poison needles that were as thin as a cow's hair and arrived instantly. From his swaying robes, he tossed out another handful of green powder. Shoo! 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 Immediately after, iron needles that were an inch long appeared from Du Ren's fingertips. He circulated a unique force before shooting them towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo's Immovable Foundation seal had just dissipated after colliding against Su Cheng's Zephyr Thunder Break, and his defense was now at its weakest. After biding his time, Du Ren finally spotted a great opportunity. He released Poison Sect's most frightening killing move the moment he attacked. Poison Sect specialized in poison. In the sect, the 7 most frightening killing moves were known as the 7 lethals. The blue poison needles earlier on were one of the 7 lethals, the heart-seeking spike. Thin as a cow's hair, they were hard to spot with one's naked eyes. The moment they made contact with a person, they could enter the veins through the pores on one's body, dooming the person instantly. The purplish-green powder was another one of the 7 lethals, the purple corpse corrosion poison. This was the poison that Xiaoning was struck by previously. It was thanks to Night Spirit's blood as well as her mysterious elixir furnace that she did not turn into a pus of blood. The final 5 iron nails were even scarier and were also one of the 7 lethals, armor-bursting bone corrosion nails. Those iron nails possessed a frightening corrosive poison that could penetrate armor and robes. They were extremely difficult to defend against. Any cultivator that was struck by the armor-bursting bone corrosion nail would have their bones turned into powder within 10 breaths. 3 of the 7 lethals were flying towards Su Zimo at the same time. You truly have a death wish. Su Zimo's gaze turned cold as he circulated his golden core. His spirit energy gushed and he released the ancient dragonification art right away. A divine dragon dozens of feet tall appeared in the air with magnificent horns on its head. It coiled a few rounds around him upwards before hovering in midair. The divine dragon was lined with scales that shone with a cold gleam. With spikes on its back, it bared its fangs and claws menacingly towards Du Ren, who was not far away. A slight collision against the spiraling divine dragon caused all the heart-seeking spikes, purple corpse corrosion poison and armor-bursting bone corrosion nails to disperse immediately. When the armor-bursting bone corrosion nails struck the divine dragon, sparks merely flew before they scattered to the ground. The dragons once ruled over the 10,000 races and had the noblest bloodline that was the most terrifying and was immune to poison. For the dragons, the 7 lethals of Poison Sect was nothing but puny tricks. Alongside the birth of the divine dragon, a shuddering aura that was extremely frightening descended. Ah! A series of exclamations came from the crowd. What is this? Could that really be a true dragon? Goodness, that man is guarded by a true dragon? Just who is he? Could he be an immortal reincarnated from the upper world? Even cultivators who were watching from afar had shock on their faces as they sensed the repressive pressure, let alone the cultivators directly in the battlefield. Du Ren felt his limbs go cold after the divine dragon targeted him. His scalp prickled and his back was already drenched in sweat. Go! Su Zimo pointed forward. The divine dragon that spiraled around him soared into the skies with a divine light and horrifying aura, lunging towards Du Ren with a nefarious howl of wind. Ah! Du Ren was scared out of his wits. Senior brother, watch out! Many Poison Sect cultivators attacked one after another, aiming the divine dragon in midair with poisoned weapons. The divine dragon swayed its tail. The massive sweep of the dragon's tail ruptured the bodies of dozens of Poison Sect cultivators. They turned into blood mists and a trail of blood appeared in midair. More than half of the Poison Sect cultivators were dead. Realizing that he could not escape in time, Du Ren released his golden core phenomenon right away. I'll send you down to meet your brother in hell. Su Zimo hollered. The divine dragon understood his intentions and extended its head, chomping down on Du Ren while neglecting the latter's golden core phenomenon. Snap! Du Ren's golden core phenomenon dissipated instantly. With a few bites, the divine dragon minced Du Ren and swallowed the latter. Blood oozed from the side of its mouth. Du Ren died on the spot. Poison Sect cultivators were not proficient in head-on combat, even if they were legacy disciples. Du Ren's golden core phenomenon could not even be ranked on the phenomenon ranking. The ancient dragonification art was a secret skill of the human emperor and could go against most of the phenomenons. Chapter 704, Chaos Essence Hole. Chapter 704, Chaos Essence Hole. The crowd was shocked. Poison Sect had more than 100 cultivators. Nobody expected more than half of them to be wiped out by the divine dragon Su Zimo summoned before they could release their true strength. Even the Paragon of Poison Sect, Du Ren, died without a corpse remaining. The Poison Sect cultivators who managed to survive fled in all directions and did not dare to linger on the battlefield. Immortal. He's definitely the reincarnation of an immortal. How can ordinary cultivators be protected by a true dragon? Some of the Poison Sect cultivators were scared out of their wits and began mumbling incoherently. Fear was an infectious emotion. Against the repressive pressure of the dragon, it was already difficult for most cultivators to maintain their composures. When they witnessed the tragic state of the Poison Sect cultivators, even cultivators of the 3 super sects, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Chaos Essence Sect and Corpse Refinement Cult, went into chaos. Monkey, the Spirit Tiger, Ching Ching and the Golden Lion seized the opportunity to launch a series of powerful attacks. Little Fox made use of the cultivators' shock to penetrate their mental defenses, controlling even more cultivators to fight against their fellow comrades. Although the 3 super sects had the advantage in numbers, they suffered immense losses and could not handle the situation at the moment. What are you guys getting flustered for? Su Qing astutely sensed that something was amiss with the situation and yelled. He pointed at the divine dragon spiraling in midair before shouting, "Open your eyes. That's a fake dragon that's created by this man using spirit energy." There was no wonder why Su Cheng was a paragon of Zephyr Thunder Palace. Although he did not know the origin of the ancient dragonification art, he could maintain his composure and deduce that the divine dragonu as a product of Su Zimo's spirit energy. Su Zimo sneered and said indifferently, "It's rude to not return favors. Have a taste of my sound-killing move too." Su Cheng's expression changed slightly and he felt fear. Su Zimo took a deep breath and his cheek puffed up like an airbag at a visible speed. It was swelling rapidly. The most beguiling thing was that the divine dragon spiraling in midair was taking a deep breath as well. Its body expanded as it puffed up its chest with surging air currents, forming a series of cyclones in midair. The man and the dragon seemed to be moving at the same time. There was a slight pause. Both of them opened their mouths at the same time. Roar. A roar that could tear through the clouds and metal was released. Su Zimo was also letting off a dragon roar. Instantly, the world changed and dust billowed. The sounds of killing, screams, spirit arts and weapons colliding seemed to have vanished from the battlefield. It was as though the dragon roar was the sound remaining in the world as it reverberated relentlessly. Some of the cultivators from the 3 super sects that were closest to Su Zimo bled from all orifices with lost gazes. Unable to withstand it, their brains were quaked into sludge on the spot. Figures fell from midair one after another. For Su Cheng, who was facing Su Zimo directly, the blow he received was even more frightening. Most of the dragon roar's power was focused on him. Ugh! Su Cheng grunted dully and staggered in retreat. Every single step created a deep footprint on the ground that flickered with electric currents. It took Su Cheng more than 10 steps before he could stop and his face was extremely pale by then. Su Cheng's blood qi moved as he gulped, causing a trickle of blood to ooze from the corner of his lips. That dragon roar had already penetrated his flesh and injured his organs. Cultivators of the 3 super sects received an immense blow from the dragon roar while Monkey and the others fought even fiercer. The tides were slowly turning. Su Cheng wiped away the blood from the corner of his mouth and swallowed a bunch of elixirs. He circulated his golden core slowly and a scary aura began to emanate from his body as his eyes flashed with lightning. The only way they could turn the tides right now was if they killed their opponents as soon as possible. If things were to drag and the few demon beasts managed to break free, all of them would be doomed. "I'll admit that you are strong indeed," Su Cheng said slowly. "However, you must be dreaming if you think that you can win me. Today, I'll let you have a taste of Zephyr Thunder Palace's golden core phenomenon so that you can give up completely." Snap! A thunderbolt that was as thick as a water bucket struck the divine dragon on the head. The power of phenomenon was released instantly. Crack! 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 A series of cracks appeared on the divine dragon's body. At the end of the day, the ancient dragonification art was merely a spirit art and could not defend against a top-tier golden core phenomenon. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. There was a chance that Su Cheng's golden core phenomenon was scarier than he had imagined it to be. Lin Xuanji reminded him that Su Cheng managed to cultivate the strongest phenomenon in Zephyr Thunder Palace's legacy, the Apocalyptic 5 Thunders. If this was the power of Su Cheng after releasing a single divine thunderbolt, things would definitely get sticky if he released all 5 thunderbolts. On another side of the battlefield at the moment, things were even worse for Niehao of Chaos Essence Sect. He was completely suppressed by Lin Xuanji without the chance to retaliate at all. Lin Xuanji had a lot of techniques and it seemed as though there was nothing he didn't know. Up till this point of the battle, Lin Xuanji had not repeated a single spirit art twice. At the same time, he even released some of Chaos Essence Sect's spirit arts. "Hey, it's about time. You'll have a shot at survival if you hurry and escape now," Lin Xuanji reminded out of goodwill. "A while later and you won't even be able to escape." Lin Xuanji had more than 10 chances of taking Niehao's life by now, but he did not do it. His words were truly earnest advice. However, Niahao was bruised from head to toe and only felt embarrassment after the beating in front of the crowd. Adrenaline surged through him and he could no longer be bothered as he released his golden core phenomenon with a roar. Most golden cores could not release their phenomenons casually in a battle. Golden core phenomenons were the strongest methods available for golden cores. The release of a phenomenon meant that there was no going back between the two parties. They would have to fight to the death. Lin Xuanji frowned and cursed, "What a lunatic. You don't know what's good for you. Since you refuse to leave, I'll leave." Lin Xuanji was unwilling to get entangled further and turned to leave. "Where are you headed to?" Niahao's features were contorted and his expression was menacing. Killing intent filled his eyes as he charged towards Lin Xuanji while roaring, "Chaos Essence Hole." Spirit energies visible to the naked eye spiraled and collided in streams before caving eventually. A black hole surfaced behind Niahao that gusted with an evil wind. Initially, the hole was cramped and small. However, it enlarged as Niahao circulated his golden core wildly, looking like the bloody mouth of a wild beast that wanted to devour everything. Chaos Essence Hole, the legacy phenomenon of Chaos Essence sect that was ranked 28 on the phenomenon ranking. Essence Chi was indeterminate and one with chaos. Some of the distracted cultivators found the weapons in their hands sucked in by the Chaos Essence Hole. Crack. 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 A supreme grade was swallowed by the Chaos Essence Hole immediately and disintegrated into dust. The black hole moved towards Lin Xuanji with a powerful suction force. Although Lin Xuanji gave in the entire time, Niahao kept pushing his luck. Instantly, Lin Xuanji's expression darkened and his eyes flashed with coldness. He was truly angered. Chapter 705, Great Expanding Mist. Chapter 705, Great Expanding Mist. Hurry, look. They're using golden core phenomenons now. An ancient phenomenon ranked 28 on the previous phenomenon ranking, Chaos Essence Hole sure is frightening. Although that grey-robed cultivator knows many things, all his spirit arts cannot do anything against the Chaos Essence Hole and will disintegrate into nothing. The cultivators watching from afar discussed excitedly. They felt spectacular able to witness the fight of ancient phenomenons earlier here. You're truly pushing your luck. Lin Xuanji no longer gave in and glared coldly at the incoming Niahao. His golden core circulated slowly and an extremely terrifying aura rose in him. Suddenly, a hazy mist appeared around Lin Xuanji. The mist carried an ancient aura, as though they had returned to the beginning of the century, an age where chaos had yet to form. The hazy mist rumbled as though it possessed the most enigmatic energy in the universe. Even Chaos Essence Hole could not envelope it. Niahao's eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at the mist. Goodness, that grey-robed cultivator released his golden core phenomenon as well. What phenomenon is that? It seems like it can go against Chaos Essence Hole. It looks like. As he listened to the discussions in the surrounding, Niahao's eyes flashed as though he recalled something. His expression changed starkly and he exclaimed, "Ancient phenomenon, great expanding mist." The crowd's expression changed at the mention of those words. Not far away, Su Cheng, who was fighting against Su Zimo, frowned and looked over as well. The great expanding mist was created by the ancient expert, Fairy Ling Long, and could only be released by the successor of Enigma Palace. Initially, everyone thought that the grey-robed cultivator was merely an itinerant cultivator with a mysterious background. But now, his identity was fully revealed. Fellow Taoist of Enigma Palace? Leng Ming had a vague feeling that something was amiss. The situation had gone completely out of control. Niahao calmed down gradually with a tinge of regret at the sight of the great expanding mist. Initially, his opponent had no intention of intervening. However, he was the one that pushed his luck and fought that man to the death, leading to the current irreconcilable situation. Leng Ming shifted his eyes and declared, "Why did Enigma Palace interfere in a fight between disciples of Tomb Sect?" The moment he released the great expanding mist, Lin Xuanji had no intention of hiding his identity. I had no intention of interfering. Lin Xuanji removed his mask and put away the iron ruler. He pulled out his folding fan from his embrace and sneered, however, someone refused to let me go. Leng Ming and the others glared at Nie Hao and cursed him to the core in their minds. I had not thought things through for this. It was my mistake for pushing my luck when I did not know your identity, fellow Daoist. Nie Hao took a deep breath and said, fellow Daoist, feel free to leave. I'll definitely not stand in your way. Fufu. Lin Xuanji sneered and shook his head. It's too late for you to bow down now. He pointed to Nie Hao with a stern expression and said word by word, I warned you a few times not to mess with me. But now, you've truly riled me up. Boom. Lin Xuanji took a stride forward and the great expanding mist churned into a gigantic chessboard in front of him that seemed like it could engulf the entire world. Nie Hao had a conflicted expression. No matter what, he was a paragon of Chaos Essence sect and possessed the pride of one. Fine, let's see just how strong the great expanding mist of Enigma Palace is. Nie Hao hollered and controlled his Chaos Essence whole, using it to devour the chessboard that was formed in front of Lin Xuanji. From the ancient era till now, although Fairy Ling Long was the one who set up the Golden Core phenomenon ranking, no successor of Enigma Palace took part in the fight for the ranking spots. Most cultivators merely knew that this ancient phenomenon had a powerful background and extraordinary might. However, nobody knew just how strong it was or what position it could take on the phenomenon ranking. Right now, despite knowing Lin Xuanji's identity, the fact that Nie Hao was willing to fight bravely was proof that he was confident Chaos Essence whole could devour the great expanding mist. Humph. A look of ridicule flashed through Lin Xuanji's eyes as he sent the giant chessboard created by the great expanding mist into the Chaos Essence hole without dodging or evading. The darkness of the hole tried to engulf the chessboard repeatedly. However, the chessboard spiraled and released streams of mysterious energy that tore the Chaos Essence hole up instead. Nie Hao's mind was connected to the Chaos Essence hole and his expression changed as he sensed the changes in it. Break it. Lin Xuanji pointed forward and a streak of spirit light surged into the Chaos Essence hole. The chessboard expanded swiftly. Crack. 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 Under countless gazes, a series of tears appeared on the Chaos Essence hole. Ah! There's an outcome to the fight between the two ancient phenomenons. To think that the great expanding mist would be this scary. Before their discussions were finished, a resounding bang reverberated through the world. Boom! The Chaos Essence hole exploded. Nie Hao shuddered and spat out a huge mouthful of blood, looking despaired instantly. The chessboard created by the great expanding mist merely dimmed significantly after destroying the Chaos Essence hole. However, it did not dissipate and continued spiraling above Nie Hao's head. A single thought from Lin Xuanji was enough to kill Nie Hao at the moment. Kill. At that moment, another battle elsewhere had reached its peak. Situ Shi controlled his 30-foot-tall battle corpse to fight against the formation created by the 5 puppets repeatedly. The battle corpse was extremely strong and every single punch and kick possessed frightening power. Shi Jian's 5 elements puppets could not hold on for much longer. Even so, there was no trace of panic in Shi Jian's eyes. He pursed his lips tightly and spirit chi threads coiled around his fingertips as he controlled the 5 elements puppets. Among them, the fire puppet blazing with flames and the water puppet attacked the battle corpse relentlessly, releasing different powers into the body of the battle corpse. At this point of refinement, the battle corpse was almost invulnerable towards fire and water. Plain fire or water could not damage the battle corpse. However, water and fire were irreconcilable. When the 2 different powers were used at the same time on the battle corpse, a violent clash would happen. Being irreconcilable, the different powers of water and fire would use the body of the battle corpse as a battlefield. Against the incomparably strong and resilient battle corpse, the clash had no impact on it initially. However, as time passed and the powers of water and fire were injected continuously, the clash stacked endlessly and finally, something changed. The movements of the battle corpse turned increasingly sluggish. Its skin and flesh showed signs of degradation, and even its bones that were comparable to spirit weapons turned extremely fragile amidst the fire and water. It was already too late by the time Situ Shi noticed it. Go! Shi Jian pointed forward, and his earth, wood and metal puppets flashed, splitting into 3 directions before charging towards Situ Shi, who was not far away. The 30-foot-tall battle corpse was already rooted to the spot by the fire and water puppets and could not get close to Shi Jian. On one end, it was battle corpses. On the other end, it was puppets. Even if the battle corpse fought against the puppets for 3 days and nights, it would be hard to determine the victor. But now, that balance has finally been broken. Situ Shi could not protect himself any longer. Chapter 706, Fall of a Paragon. Chapter 706, Fall of a Paragon. Ah! Situ Shi exclaimed with fright in his eyes. Be it cultivators of puppet sect or corpse refinement cult, they spent most of their efforts refining their puppets and battle corpses. Cultivators of poison sect and tomb sect would have similar inclinations by spending most of their efforts on external objects. That was also the reason why they were defined as heretical doctrines. There were limits to a person's strength. Less accomplished in their personal cultivations, cultivators of the 5 heretical doctrines were also naturally weaker physically compared to cultivators of other supersections. There were even less cultivators who could cultivate golden core phenomenons. For example, Duren of Poison Sect was already a rare paragon for Poison Sect. Unfortunately, he was killed by the ancient dragonification art the moment he released his golden core phenomenon. Situ Shi's capabilities were completely tied to his 30-foot battle corpse. Now that his battle corpse was restrained by Shi Jian and 3 more puppets were heading his way, Situ Shi instantly realized that something was amiss. Go! He slapped his storage bag and summoned a flying sword, thrusting it to the metal puppet on the left. Clang! The flying sword was repelled instantly with sparks when it struck the metal puppet. The metal puppet had the toughest and most resilient body, such that even Situ Shi's battle corpse had difficulty destroying it. If so, how could it be injured by Situ Shi's flying sword? In his panic, Situ Shi conjured a spirit art. The earth puppet created a shield using sand and defended against the spirit art with ease. Realizing that he could not win, Situ Shi turned to flee. Unexpectedly, a series of green vines surged beneath his feet and bound them together. Before he knew it, the wood puppet had already arrived before him. The leaves of the vines were thin as paper and equally sharp, cutting wounds on Situ Shi's thighs as fresh blood flowed. Ah! Situ Shi shrieked tragically. The metal puppet had already arrived and used its palm as a knife, chopping down fiercely on Situ Shi's head. It shone coldly with a chilling killing intent. Before the knife arrived, Situ Shi could already feel his hair standing on end. He had no time to hesitate as he waved the long rod in his hands. Clang! The sound of metal colliding could be heard. Situ Shi felt a piercing pain in his ears as though they had gone deaf. Although he managed to defend against the attack, the earth puppet had already closed in. It stuck to Situ Shi and wrapped him up in layers of mud. In the blink of an eye, Situ Shi vanished, leaving behind a human-shaped mud block. Thump! A moment later, the mud block fell to the ground and shattered, revealing Situ Shi's body once again. There was no longer any trace of life within the body of the corpse refinement cult Paragon, and his eyes were widened with fear and indignance. They were the first group with a victor determined among the various paragons who were fighting. What a surprise! Situ Shi has been famous for many years. To think that he would be killed by this unknown lad who looks like a dunce. He can multitask and control the 5 elements puppets to kill the paragon of corpse refinement cult. This dunce of puppet sect is about to get famous. At the end of the day, the Tao of corpse refinement is evil and is inferior. The cultivators watching nearby lamented with sad expressions. Huff! Huff! Shi Jian half knelt on the ground and panted heavily. His clothes were already drenched with sweat and he was thoroughly exhausted. Although he did not fight Situ Shur with his bare hands, the continuous control of 5 puppets took a huge toll on his spirit energy and mental state. If the battle continued for another hour, it would be hard to determine the victor. Nie Hao was defeated and Situ Shur died a horribly death. Leng Ming realized that if he could not take down Little Fatty as soon as possible and take away the Yellow Springs diagram, it would be difficult for him to escape unscathed today. Kill. Decisively, he hollered and released his golden core phenomenon. Junior brother, admit defeat. A hazy yellow river appeared behind Leng Ming. It was massive and huge, emanating a rich nether aura as corpses floated on the surface while ghosts squirmed within. Splash. Little Fatty was fearless as he released his golden core phenomenon as well. The 2 legacy disciples of Tomb's sect released their Yellow Springs phenomenon at the same time. Fufu, junior brother. So what if you're able to release the Yellow Springs phenomenon as well? Leng Ming's eyes were filled with mockery as he shook his head. Throughout all these years, when has your Yellow Springs phenomenon ever defeated mine? You're too far from me. Before Leng Ming could finish, his expression changed and he froze up. A hazy yellow river current appeared behind Little Fatty as well. It was massive with corpses and ghosts inside, but the aura released by it was much scarier than Leng Ming's. How is that possible? Leng Ming looked at everything in disbelief. Little Fatty had not cultivated his Yellow Springs phenomenon to this extent before he entered the ancient battlefield. Roar. In that hazy yellow river current, there was even a faint figure of a WYRM that created torrential waves and released a loud roar. After he received the acknowledgement of the Yellow Springs diagram, Little Fatty did not only undergo a transformation physically, his Yellow Springs phenomenon evolved as well. Furthermore, he had obtained 50% of the dragon vein in the Yellow Springs diagram. Against the shroud of Little Fatty's Yellow Springs, Leng Ming's Yellow Springs resembled a feeble stream of water. The Yellow Springs rumbled and buried the 6 paths of reincarnation. This was the true Yellow Springs phenomenon. Amidst the torrential tides, Little Fatty supported his Yellow Springs phenomenon and dragged Leng Ming into it. That's impossible. Within the Yellow Springs, Leng Ming screamed from the depths of his throat as he struggled furiously with a menacing expression. However, his Yellow Springs phenomenon was extremely weak against the true Yellow Springs and could not withstand a single blow. How could this be? How could this be? Leng Ming's body was enveloped by the power of the Yellow Springs phenomenon and his clothes disintegrated while his flesh and skin started rotting. I've got it. It must be because of the Yellow Springs diagram. Your phenomenon has been imbued by the true Yellow Springs. What are you trying to do? Do you really dare to kill me? Leng Ming glared at Little Fatty and howled. Initially, there was a hint of hesitance in Little Fatty's eyes. However, when he heard what Leng Ming said, Little Fatty took a deep breath of air and channeled his golden core with his full strength. The Yellow Springs were torrential and swallowed Leng Ming whole. Junior, brother, we're from the same sect. Please, spare my life. Leng Ming did not give up in the Yellow Springs and resisted with all his might. His voice stuttered and turned weak. Senior brother, the only thing I know is that you will definitely not let me off if the situation was reversed. Little Fatty's voice was calm as the Yellow Springs howled and drowned Leng Ming completely. Any cultivator that saw that watched with gaping mouths and shock in their eyes. The true Yellow Springs phenomenon was born. Along with the defeat of Nie Hao and death of Situ Shur and Leng Ming, the outcome of the fight was almost determined. However, the cultivators spectating still watched fixedly with excited expressions, as though they were afraid of missing something. A showdown between 2 peerless paragons was happening on the other side. The world changed. Chapter 707, Double Phenomenon vs. Apocalyptic 5 Thunders. Chapter 707, Double Phenomenon vs. Apocalyptic 5 Thunders. Nie Hao was defeated tragically while Situ Shur and Leng Ming died in succession. Cultivators of the three super sects were also mostly defeated and dead after the charge of Monkey and the others. It was almost certain that Su Cheng's side was defeated. However, at that moment, Su Cheng had no intention of retreating still, and his eyes had a raring battle intent. He locked onto Su Zimo with his gaze, and lightning crackled from the golden core phenomenon behind him. Everyone could retreat except him. The Purple Thunder Manual was in Su Zimo's hands. As long as he retrieved it, he would have done a huge merit for the sect and would also obtain the opportunity to cultivate the Purple Thunder Manual. Of course, that would naturally lead to a boost in his combat strength as well. In Zephyr Thunder Palace, a legacy cultivation technique was the Green Thunder Manual, and it was also at heaven grade. It was clearly recorded in the sect that individually, the Purple Thunder and Green Thunder were both low-quality heaven grade cultivation techniques. Combined, they would become a high-quality heaven grade cultivation technique with unimaginable power. Su Cheng believed that this was his opportunity. As long as he killed Su Zimo and retrieved the Purple Thunder Manual, he would become the #1 perfected lord upon advancing to nascent soul realm. In fact, he could dominate everyone as a Dao being at Void Reversion Realm and become the new titular disciple of the sect for this generation. Su Cheng could not retreat. He was the #1 disciple of Zephyr Thunder Palace in the ancient battlefield, and he had his pride to maintain. Even if he escaped cleanly today, the two of them would definitely fight again in the Myriad Phenomenon City for the Golden Core Phenomenon ranking. At that time, he would lose in terms of aura before the battle even begins. Su Cheng believed that he could kill Su Zimo with overwhelming strength and regain the Purple Thunder Manual. In fact, he could even try to get his hands on the Yellow Springs diagram. All right. He nodded as he swept his gaze across the battlefield with a torrential aura. Without Situsher and the others, I'll take all the treasures in the tomb single-handedly. It's all thanks to you guys for killing them. You have yet to realize your situation. Just by standing in the air indifferently with his hands behind his back, Su Zimo was already able to contend against Su Cheng, who had his Golden Core Phenomenon released without being disadvantaged. Su Zimo remarked coldly, "You can barely protect yourself right now, but you're coveting the treasures of the tomb?" Ha 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 ha. Su Cheng reared his head in laughter. Su Zimo, I'll admit that you are strong in melee combat. However, the strongest means available to perfected beings are Golden Core Phenomenons. The ranking list created by Fairy Ling Long is called the Golden Core Phenomenon ranking, not the melee combat strength ranking. I heard that you have a double phenomenon, so let's see just how strong they are today. As you wish. Although Su Zimo's tone was calm, lightning flashed and electricity crackled behind him. The firmament collapsed and countless meteors fell with raging currents flooding. A gigantic divine turtle appeared in the world, rearing its head as it roared with a divine might and an imposing gaze. The primordial divine turtle had descended. Mysterious patterns shone from its shell one after another as it supported the shattered firmament. Its limbs suppressed the raging currents like heavenly piercing pillars. Go! Su Cheng pointed forward after sensing the tremendous pressure. Initially, there was only a single thunderbolt behind him. Instantly, two more appeared, thick as water buckets and shining brightly. Snap! Snap! All three thunderbolts struck the shell. Sizzle! Lightning flashed and created frightening arcs on the shell. Even after enduring 3 thunderbolts, the primordial divine turtle did not yield and protected Su Zimo beneath it. Ah, there's no wonder why that's a lost primordial phenomenon. It's so strong. Seems like there's nothing Su Cheng can do to Su Zimo. That's not for sure. The Golden Core phenomenon Su Cheng cultivated is the Apocalyptic 5 Thunders, but he has only just summoned 3 divine thunderbolts. However, the strength of every single divine thunderbolt multiplies. Su Cheng narrowed his gaze. He did not expect to defeat Su Zimo with 3 divine thunderbolts. However, he did not expect that 3 divine thunderbolts would not deal much of an impact to Su Zimo's primordial divine turtle as well. We're just getting started. Su Cheng said coldly as he swallowed a handful of elixirs before circulating his golden core once more. The dark clouds above his head turned thicker and darker as though they were about to fall at any moment. Sizzle. As the clouds moved, lightning flashed and another divine thunderbolt was created, striking instantly. 4 divine thunderbolts descended at the same time. Boom! The 4 divine thunderbolts resembled lightning spears as they struck the divine turtle fiercely on its back, creating a deafening explosion. Roar! The divine turtle cried tragically with a hint of pain in its eyes. Against the strike of 4 divine thunderbolts, the golden core phenomenon behind Su Zimo quaked violently and its luster dimmed. Humph! Su Zimo had a cold gaze as he circulated his golden core with a single thought. Once again, an incomparably strong and scorching aura burst forth from his body. Bang! Boom! Boom! The mountains toppled and volcanoes spewed. One after another, scorching lava sprayed across the land and incinerated all living beings, blazing through the masses. Hiss! The primordial soaring serpent flapped its wings and hissed endlessly as it glided into the air from a fissure in the ground. It took a deep breath and devoured all the lava before spewing it out once more. Shing! The scorching scarlet lava let out a strange sound when it splashed on Su Cheng's golden core phenomenon. Even the divine thunderbolts were burning as a red flare surged into the air. The descent of the 2 primordial divine beings, the divine turtle and soaring serpent, formed the union of fire and water. The birth of the double phenomenon caused the entire world to quake. Su Cheng's expression changed starkly. The power of the double phenomenon was much scarier than he had imagined. In the past, the soaring serpent and divine turtle phenomenons could both be ranked in the top 10 of the golden core phenomenon ranking. When the 2 great phenomenons were released at the same time, how frightening would their powers be? The 4 divine thunderbolts could not deal with it and their lightnings dissipated. The golden core phenomenon was on the verge of dispersing at any moment. Well. Su Cheng clenched his teeth and said coldly, "You should feel proud that you're able to force me to such an extent. This apocalyptic 5 thunders that I've cultivated was meant for Dean initially. But now, I'll use it to suppress you first." The 5th divine thunderbolt, gather. Su Cheng's golden core was already at its limit and there were even waves of throbbing pain. A series of thunderbolts flashed around him and he seemed as though he was possessed by the god of thunder. He pointed into the skies into the depths of the forming sea of dark clouds where a single light spot was intensifying. An even more terrifying divine thunderbolt descended. With the creation of the 5th thunderbolt, Su Cheng's golden core phenomenon was finally fully formed and evolved in quality. 5 divine thunderbolts possessed an apocalyptic might. Boom! 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 The 5 divine thunderbolts descended and struck the divine turtle and soaring serpent phenomenons repeatedly. Naturally, the 2 primordial divine beings were unwilling to express weakness against such provocation. They howled and stirred raging tides and blanketing flames to clash against the 5 divine thunderbolts. A blinding and resplendent aurora was created where the 3 great golden core phenomenons clashed. The surrounding spirit chi was already dried up, absorbed completely by the 3 phenomenons. The air currents surged. Cultivators nearby, the 2 of them who could not dodge in time, were drawn in by the shockwaves created by the clash of the 3 phenomenons and evaporated into blood mists instantly. Everyone witnessed a perfect spirit weapon trapped among the 3 phenomenons and cracks appeared on it one after another. Pust! The crowd fell into an uproar. The explosion was so terrifying that even a perfect spirit weapon could not withstand it. Chapter 708, Entwining of Serpent and Turtle, Descent of the Black Tortoise. Chapter 708, Entwining of Serpent and Turtle, Descent of the Black Tortoise. A series of terrifying energy fluctuations were released by the repeated clashes between the 3 phenomenons. The cultivators in the vicinity had already retreated far away a long time ago. The voids were quaking violently. Su Cheng had a deranged expression and green veins popped on his neck one after another. He had already circulated the power of his phenomenon to its limits. Even so, the 5 divine thunderbolts could not break through the soaring serpent and soaring serpent primordial phenomenons. The golden core phenomenons of both parties were in a stalemate in midair and expended energy continuously. Compared to Su Cheng, Su Zimo was much more composed. Although his double phenomenon had the slight advantage, he could not take down the 5 divine thunderbolts either. It was as Lin Xuanji had said, apart from Di Yin, Su Cheng was the most troublesome paragon Su Zimo had come across. The apocalyptic 5 thunders was also the only golden core phenomenon up till this point that could defend against the divine turtle and soaring serpent. In midair, the 3 phenomenons devoured and clashed against one another. It was difficult to determine who would prevail. Su Cheng's eyes shone. During this short period of time, the successor of Enigma Palace as well as the legacy disciples of Puppet Sect and Tombs Sect had consumed some elixirs and regained some strength after the breather. He would definitely be defeated if the 3 of them were to charge forward. Su Zimo, I'll consider this a draw today. Although he was indignant, Su Cheng could only swallow this as he grit his teeth. I'll definitely fight you to the death in Myriad Phenomenon City. Don't worry, I'll make you hand over the Purple Thunder Manual for sure. Su Cheng wanted to withdraw after saying that. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo continued pushing with a look of disdain in his eyes as he said indifferently, why should we wait till we get to Myriad Phenomenon City? I'll fight you to the death today. Humph. Su Cheng sneered, Su Zimo, I'll admit that you're strong. However, you must be naive if you think that you can kill me with just your double phenomenon. You're the naive one, not me. Su Zimo sneered as well, do you really think that the double phenomenon is all I've got? When he heard that, Su Cheng's expression changed as his heart skipped a beat. This man had a stronger trump card? That was impossible. Su Cheng denied that thought in his mind right away. However, his eyes widened immediately after with endless shock in them. Fuse. Su Zimo stood in the air and shouted as his hands clasped together slowly. Along with his command and motion, the 2 primordial phenomenons behind him leaned towards one another and gradually fused. The primordial divine turtle and primordial soaring serpent belonged to 2 extremities. One was fire while the other was water. One was passive while the other was active. But now, the soaring serpent wrapped around the divine turtle and coiled itself on the latter's shell with its massive body as their heads were lined one above the other. The 2 primordial divine beings seemed to have fused as one. This was not only the fusion of 2 primordial divine beings. In it, there was a mysterious truth of the universe. The entwining of turtle and serpent, the fusion of water and fire, the combination of passiveness and activeness. An even more frightening aura was released and spread into the surroundings, encompassing the world. Be it cultivators in the battlefield or watching from afar, all of them shuddered in fear and instinctively wanted to kowtow onto the ground. Even for Monkey, he felt the jitters despite his untamed nature. This was a suppression that came from the depths of the bloodline. It was a fear that originated from the memories of one's soul. The turtle and serpent vanished. There was only a single golden core phenomenon remaining. Although Su Cheng's apocalyptic 5 thunders was frightening, it swayed as though it could dissipate at any moment in the face of this golden core phenomenon. None of the cultivators present could recognize the origin of the phenomenon. However, Lin Xuanji's eyes were widened as he muttered softly, that is. After a moment, he gasped as though he recalled something and exclaimed, the entwining of turtle and serpent, one of the 4 great sacred beasts, the black tortoise. Legend has it that at the origin of chaos, before the world was created, there were the 4 sacred beasts, the azure dragon, vermilion bird, white tiger and black tortoise. In reality, the dragon race of the primordial 9 races in Tianhuang mainland had its bloodline from the azure dragon. As for the phoenixes, their bloodline came from the vermilion bird bloodline. The 4 sacred beasts could be considered as the oldest and scariest existences in the universe and were considered as the progenitors of many demon beasts. Su Zimo remained dormant in the Dragon Burial Valley for 20 years, studying Zen and Buddhism. Through the wisdom of Buddhism, he resolved the conflict of his immortality and demonic cultivation, allowing water and fire to fuse together. There was no distinction between immortals or demons, and the serpent and turtle had fused. For the past 20 years, the only thing that Su Zimo did apart from strolling was studying scriptures. Although it seemed like a carefree life, he had benefited immensely. The serpent and turtle were entwined and the black tortoise had descended. Go! Su Zimo pointed forward with a calm expression. The black tortoise reared its head and moved with 4 limbs, pushing forward gently. Crack! 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 Instantly, a series of cracks appeared on Su Cheng's 5 divine thunderbolts. They dimmed significantly before dissipating into light spots into the surroundings. Su Cheng spat out a huge mouthful of blood and color drained from his face. The black tortoise was a sacred beast. Sacred beasts were existences that came before the origin of chaos and more frightening than the legendary immortals and immortal beasts of the upper world. Although it was only a phenomenon, it was not something that Su Cheng's divine thunderbolts could contend against. In the face of the black tortoise phenomenon, Su Cheng felt as though his life was as insignificant as an ant. How scary, Dean finally has an opponent. This is an unprecedented phenomenon. Even against the top-tier phenomenons throughout history, this phenomenon can make it into the top 10. No, top 5. In fact, maybe even top 3. In my opinion, the human emperor's Chaos Ocean is probably the only thing that can contend against it. Su Zimo will definitely be able to leave his name on the Golden Core phenomenon for creating such a frightening phenomenon by tracing back to the ancient experts of the past. I'm so envious. In the fight for the Golden Core phenomenon ranking, if someone managed to create an unprecedented Golden Core phenomenon through their own comprehension or opportunities and managed to get into the rankings, they can name their phenomenons. It was an immense honor and would truly embody leaving their mark in history. On the Golden Core phenomenon ranking, many of the ancient phenomenons were handwritten by top-tier experts of the past personally. Su Cheng could not be bothered with his severe internal injuries and grabbed a handful of elixirs from his storage bag, devouring them. Su Zimo, although I'm defeated, you can dream about killing me. He ignored his injuries and made a decisive decision to turn and leave while declaring, you had better not show yourself in Myriad Phenomenon City or you'll die miserably. A pair of wings made of wind and lightning appeared behind Su Cheng. In that clamor, he had already vanished from the spot and fled far away at a frightening speed. Su Cheng endured the pain in his body and snarled, this is a secret skill of our sect, the Zephyr Thunder Escape. Even ordinary nascent souls won't be able to catch up to me. In the Purple Thunder Manual, Su Zimo caught sight of a section introducing a secret escape technique called the Lightning Escape. Although it was similar to the Zephyr Thunder Escape, it was a pity that he could not cultivate it just yet. Right now, it was relatively simple for him to capture Su Cheng. First, he could release his cultivation and circulate both cores. Coupled with ethereal wings, there's a high chance he could catch up. Second, he could release Blood Escape. Right as Su Zimo was considering his options, he sensed danger. Chapter 709, Counterattack. Chapter 709, Counterattack. As Su Cheng fled into the distance, Su Zimo retracted his black tortoise phenomenon. The support of a Golden Core phenomenon requires immense expenditure of spirit energy. Now that the outcome was determined, there was no need for Su Zimo to maintain his Golden Core phenomenon everywhere he went. However, the moment he retracted his black tortoise phenomenon, he sensed an immense danger that was close by. Su Zimo did not have time to check it out. The person struck at a perfect moment when his defenses were at its weakest. It was also the moment when he was the most relaxed. There was already no one within 100 feet of his battle with Su Cheng. Su Zimo had not expected anyone to close into him stealthily and attack without warning. The killing intent enveloped him immediately and it was chilling to the bones. If he had not cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness and possessed his unpredictable spirit perception, Su Zimo would not have been able to react and would have died on the spot. This could be considered as a perfect assassination attempt. Although he did not turn to look, a figure crossed Su Zimo's mind. Someone whose attire was indeterminate and had shifting appearances, a woman at times, a child at times, an elderly person at times. The assassin of Hidden Death Sect. Only a legacy disciple of Hidden Death Sect could have the insight to launch such a frightening assassination attempt. Su Zimo fought against the most prominent successors of Hidden Death Sect twice and each time was equally treacherous. 20 years ago, Su Zimo only managed to kill the thousand-faced assassin beneath the human emperor's palace. To think that an assassin of Hidden Death Sect would leech onto him in the ancient battlefield again and try to claim his life immediately upon striking. Ah! A series of exclamations broke out from the crowd. Mr. Bro. Brother Su, watch out. Little Fox, the spirit tiger and everyone else did not have time to move and could only shout. Lin Xuanji had just taken a half-step forward before he stopped. It was already too late. Nobody could save Su Zimo. The sword of the assassin was inches away from Su Zimo. A wary look flashed through Lin Xuanji's eyes. This was the true terror of a legacy disciple of Hidden Death Sect. If he was in Su Zimo's position, he would be doomed from this assassination as well. There was nothing much to offend an ordinary cultivator. However, if one offended an assassin, one would never have a moment of peace in their future unless either one of the parties were truly dead. Nobody could know when an assassin would appear and they would always have to be on guard. The assassin could be far away or nearby, always biding an opportune moment for a fatal strike like a ghost in the dark. The mental torture was extremely frightening and most cultivators wouldn't be able to handle it. In that instant, Su Zimo shouted with Sanskrit and released his robust voice as his blood chi surged and reverberated relentlessly like the crack of a thunderbolt. Sound-killing moves had almost instantaneous power bursts. At that critical moment, only a sound-killing move could save Su Zimo. The assassin's body shuddered upon hearing the Sanskrit word. Even for legacy disciples of Hidden Death Sect, they were not superior in head-on combat. The Sanskrit was released with haste and might not have had an impact on someone like Su Cheng. However, the impact was great for the Hidden Death Sect assassin. The sword in the hands of the assassin paused for a moment. However, immediately after, the assassin released Hidden Death Sect's secret skill and suppressed the wild blood chi in his body. He straightened the sword and thrust toward Su Zimo's heart from the back. The pause lasted for less than a single breath. Most cultivators wouldn't be able to react to it. However, Su Zimo possessed the warning from his spirit perception to begin with. There was no way he could miss this fleeting opportunity. Splash! His blood chi rumbled. Su Zimo's body expanded massively all of a sudden and his robes were torn, revealing muscles that resembled molten steel. Although the transformation did not seem like anything much, the expansion of Su Zimo's body caused the initial position of his heart to deviate. Buzz! Buzz! 6 spirit patterns shone on the assassin's thin blade. It was a connate spirit weapon that was extremely sharp. However, the moment the thin blade entered Su Zimo's flesh, it was met with great resistance and let out a strange noise. Half of his thin blade was pushed through but it did not hit any vitals. Furthermore, when the assassin wanted to withdraw the sword, he discovered that his sword was stuck tightly within Su Zimo's flesh. The next moment, a gigantic palm descended from the skies as a dark shadow blanketed the world. How dare you! Su Zimo hollered and disregarded his injuries as he counterattacked. He was truly enraged by the assassination. Thankfully, he had energy remaining after his fight with Su Cheng. If he was facing an opponent like Di'in, it would be deadly to have an enemy like this assassin lurking nearby. He had to strike this person to death with his palm. Right here, right now. The assassin was decisive without any hint of panic in his eyes. He abandoned his thin sword and turned to flee, scurrying into the distance without touching the ground. His movement technique resembled a ghost, and he would disappear from one's line of sight if one was careless. "You're still trying to escape?" Su Zimo withdrew the long sword on his body and stuffed it into his storage bag. A stream of blood spewed out, but Su Zimo ignored it. His physique was way too strong that an injury like this would not impact him much. He would recover on his own before long. In a flash, Su Zimo chased in the direction of the assassin. Ma. Ni. Pa. Mi. Hom. Su Zimo released the 6 Sanskrit words of the damning mantra immediately, bursting like thunder. A single Sanskrit word was enough to affect the assassin. Now that all 6 words of the damning mantra were released, a terrifying power was formed in the voids. A Buddha light flashed and Sanskrit reverberated endlessly. Against the shock of the Sanskrit words, the assassin spat out a mouthful of blood and instantly revealed his position. "You're far weaker compared to the 1,000-faced assassin." Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo had already arrived behind the person. He reached out and punched the assassin heavily on the back. Snap! A tremendous power almost snapped the assassin, causing a lump to protrude from his chest in a shocking manner. That single punch severed the life of the assassin. Thump! The assassin fell forward stiffly. Su Zimo arrived beside him and put away the latter's storage bag. He then reached out and kicked the assassin's corpse to flip it. The assassin was naturally unable to maintain Hidden Death Sect's secret skill after his death, and his appearance was revealed. He was an ordinary person. His features could not have been any more ordinary. He was someone that would not be noticed at all when thrown into a crowd. Although Su Zimo had just seen how this person looked, the moment he closed his eyes, he could not even remember the person's face. Someone like that was a natural-born assassin. However, it was a pity that he chose the wrong prey. Chapter 710, God Race. Chapter 710, God Race. Although the assassin of Hidden Death Sect was dead, Su Cheng of Zephyr Thunder Palace managed to escape with the opening as well. It was already too late for Su Zimo to chase in pursuit. In the end, Lin Xuanji did not kill Nie Hao of Chaos Essence Sect ruthlessly either, choosing to release the latter. Enigma Palace had an exceptional status in Tianhuang mainland and would naturally not sow grudges with other super sections. Lin Xuanji could not be as indifferent as Su Zimo in handling things. There were few cultivators remaining from the 3 super sects, and they fled in all directions wildly, vanishing without a trace. The cultivators watching nearby were emotional upon seeing that. After this battle, Su Zimo's would become even more prominent in the ancient battlefield. To many cultivators, Di'in was probably the only one who could fight with him. This battle was an eye-opener for many cultivators. Notwithstanding the spirit arts and combat technique used in the massacre, there were quite a few ancient phenomenons that appeared. Chaos Essence Hole, Yellow Springs, Apocalyptic 5 Thunders, Primordial Divine Turtle, Primordial Soaring Serpent, and the extremely mysterious Great Expanding Mist. At the end, everyone had the fortune of witnessing the birth of a brand new Golden Core phenomenon. Furthermore, it was so scary that it could destroy the Apocalyptic 5 Thunders with ease. To think that even terrifying existences such as Ling Ming, Situ and the assassin of Hidden Death Sect would die here. What a pity. Don't forget, this is the ancient battlefield where anything can happen. That's right. If the assassin of Hidden Death Sect had not appeared in the end, Su Cheng of Zephyr Thunder Palace might not have been able to escape as well. Many cultivators dispersed as they discussed in hushed voices. The battle had come to an end. Although everyone knew that this group was in possession of treasures such as the Yellow Springs Diagram and Purple Thunder Manual, nobody dared to fight them for it. Thank you. Su Zimo turned to Lin Xuanji and nodded. Lin Xuanji was different from Little Fatty and Shi Jian. His identity was sensitive and there was no need for him to help out. Although Nie Hao was the one who pushed his luck, given Lin Xuanji's capabilities, if he truly wanted to escape, there was no way Niahao could have stopped him. Lin Xuanji waved it off and said deeply, "This black tortoise phenomenon that you've created is extremely strong and terrifying. Perhaps it can truly go against Chaos Ocean, but..." He paused for a moment before saying slowly, "From what I know, Di'in is way scarier than he was 100 years ago. I don't even dare to divine anything pertaining to him. You must be careful." Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. The fact that Lin Xuanji was so wary was proof of how frightening Di'in was. "Don't worry, I haven't wasted my past 20 years as well," Su Zimo replied. Lin Xuanji nodded with a pensive expression. "There's one more thing, you've got to be careful after entering Myriad Phenomenon City. You've already offended almost everyone from the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects in the elementary ancient battlefield. You killed and injured many of them in the battle at the human emperor's palace. Although they can't blame anyone since they were the ones that joined forces, some sects might hold on to the grudge and make things difficult for you because of it. Since Su Cheng and Niahao are not dead, the two great immortal sects, Zephyr Thunder Palace and Chaos Essence Sect, will definitely cause trouble for you in Myriad Phenomenon City." "Humph." Su Zimo sneered, "That's great. I'll send Su Cheng down to the Yellow Springs if he comes to look for me. There's something you might not know." Lin Xuanji said slowly, "In Myriad Phenomenon City, there's formations and seals left behind by seniors of Enigma Palace. Nascent souls can make use of dermic powers freely without being detected by the outside world." He was implying that nascent souls could attack freely in Myriad Phenomenon City without being devoured. That was a little troublesome. Lin Xuanji continued, "Zephyr Thunder Palace and Chaos Essence Sect have nascent souls tagging along for their expedition. These nascent souls are not sealers that are in their twilight years, but people in their prime with immense vitality. You must be careful of these nascent souls causing trouble for you after entering Myriad Phenomenon City." Su Zimo nodded. In that case, anyone that did not have the backing of nascent souls in Myriad Phenomenon City was definitely disadvantaged. Lin Xuanji said, "All right, I'll leave you guys to clean up the battlefield. I'll take my leave first." "Hold on." As though he recalled something, Su Zimo called back Lin Xuanji. "What's wrong?" Lin Xuanji froze for a moment. Su Zimo asked, "Have you seen a group of cultivators, around 8 of them, with ancient attires? They have golden hair, blue eyes, sharp noses, and every single one of them is extremely good-looking." When he heard that description, Lin Xuanji's expression turned increasingly grim. "Why are they here?" he murmured with a dark look on his face. Su Zimo asked, "Who are they?" He had to know their background since Nian Qi was taken away by them. Lin Xuanji asked instead, "You know about the primordial 9 races, right?" Su Zimo nodded. Lin Xuanji said slowly, "They are part of the primordial 9 races, the God race." God race. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat at the mention of those words. There was a race in Tianhuang mainland that dared to refer to themselves as gods. They were either lunatics or... They must be truly frightening that they resembled gods. Lin Xuanji frowned deeply and murmured, "The primordial 9 races would almost never appear in the ancient battlefield. To think that beings of the god race from this generation would enter. Why are you asking about that? Have you seen them?" Lin Xuanji asked. "No." Su Zimo shook his head. "However, I've got a friend that was taken away by that group. I've got to rescue her." Lin Xuanji sighed gently and shook his head. "You haven't interacted with the god race before, so you don't know about their terror." He continued, "In the god race, killing above their level is something as simple as drinking water. The only thing that would pique their interest slightly is killing someone that's a major realm above them. To put it simply, against the god race, your body, blood chi, and advantage in melee combat is almost non-existent." Su Zimo did not doubt Lin Xuanji. From Qing Qing's description, he could already vaguely guess how frightening the group of cultivators were. How terrifying was Su Zimo's body and blood chi. He had yet to experience defeat in melee combat. Even when he exchanged blows with Diin in the old temple at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley, he had a slight advantage. But now, it was said that the god race could match him in terms of physique and blood qi. As one of the primordial 9 races, the god race has a noble bloodline and possesses many ancient secret skills and techniques. Even Diin would not dare to provoke them recklessly. Lin Xuanji mulled, the arrival of the god race. Seems like something big is about to happen in the ancient battlefield. This is not good. I've got to hurry back and inform the elders of the sect so that they can prepare for things. With that said, Lin Xuanji vanished right in front of their eyes in a puff of smoke. God race, God race. Su Zimo murmured with an unfathomable expression as he said coldly, to think that I'll come across the primordial 9 races so quickly. It was no wonder why Nian Qi possessed such immense strength in the past without knowing anything. It was because she carried the blood of the god race in her body. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.